Chapter 430. Although Bai Xiaoxing's expression was calm, his heart was crumbling. After all, he had lost to the same person twice in one day. If this were to spread, he would lose a lot of face. But if he won, he had to be gracious. If he lost, he had to be magnanimous. Thus, he forced himself to smile, but his heart was crying. Bai Xiaoxing's current state of mind was extremely gloomy. The good show was over. Some people were still unsatisfied, some people were full of complaints, and some people didn't care. But they all left one after another. Lawn Manor's transactions had a time limit. Now that they had finished watching the show, they should seize the time to find what they wanted to trade. The room was empty. When Chu Qingyin heard this, she suppressed the excitement in her heart. Then, she took the pen and paper. Just as she was about to write, she hesitated for a moment and turned around. "Sir, Bai Xiaoxing, do you only trade once? I have something here. Can I trade with you again?" Chu Qingyin looked at him expectantly. As soon as her voice fell, Bai Xiaoxing's brows furrowed. One token enters one door, one transaction. This is the rule. The black-clothed man from Lawn Manor, standing next to him, glanced at him subconsciously. The rules of Lawn Manor meant nothing to this man. This should be an excuse to shirk responsibility. That's right. At this time, Bai Xiaoxing still hadn't recovered from the blow. He wouldn't allow Chu Qingyin to challenge his token again. From the exchange, just now, this little girl was able to make him speechless twice. If she did it again, it would be hard to say what strange thing it would be. He was also a person who cherished his face, so he refused without any discussion. "All right." Chu Qingyin regretfully turned around. She earnestly wrote down her question on a piece of paper. After drying it, she handed it to Bai Xiaoxing. Bai Xiaoxing took the paper and opened it. His eyes swept over it. The corners of his lips curled up. He put the paper away and handed it to the black-clothed man. "When you leave, Lawn Manor's people will give you the answer." He was originally worried that it would be a question that he had never heard of before, but now he was relieved. From what he said, it was obvious that he knew the answer. Chu Qingyin was pleasantly surprised, but she still didn't know what to do with this news. If she was too obsessed with the answer, when one day it was within reach, she would feel like she was dreaming. Was it true or not? Chu Qingyin couldn't help but step forward to confirm. "Your Excellency, do you know its whereabouts?" "Little girl, it's true that I've lost to you twice, but my reputation isn't just for show. You can rest assured." Bai Xiaoxing could understand her thoughts. After all, this herb had disappeared for many years. It was normal for her to be worried. Chu Qingyin nodded. Her heart was already bursting with joy. It was great that she finally knew. She was about to cry with joy. Higashio Motetsu saw how excited she was under the mask. He couldn't help but look away. What was so good about Xiao Su? At this time, there were still a few people standing around. When the two of them finished exchanging, one of them walked forward. "Little girl, where did you get this magnifying glass?" A man wearing a cyan fong mask walked forward. His voice was a bit feminine. Chu Qingyin subconsciously restrained her smile. She looked at him with vigilance. He suddenly came up to inquire for no reason. She was a bit uneasy. This thing was bought by this little girl's grandfather from a foreign merchant a few days ago. She didn't answer truthfully, but made up a reason. If a magnifying glass was used to read a book or light a fire, it really didn't have any magical uses. When a normal person heard about this function, they would only find it novel. But once the novelty passed, they wouldn't think much of it. But the people here, what kind of people were they? They were people at the peak of power and wealth. They never did business without capital. Once they saw something, there would be a magical use for it. Chu Qingyin suddenly thought of many things. For example, the lines on the official seal, or the imperial jade seal, or the damaged treasure map. She didn't dare to think about it anymore. She couldn't be blamed for thinking too much. She had watched too many political dramas. She was also afraid of being remembered by others. After the feminine person finished asking, he didn't say anything else. He just looked deeply at Chu Qingyin, then returned to his original position. Higashio Motetsu leaned over to her ear and said, "Little girl, this thing of yours is too eye-catching. I think." He paused. He didn't say it, but his meaning was self-evident. Chu Qingyin nodded. indicating that she also noticed it. If this person said that he wanted to exchange with her after asking, then she could make a deal with him. But this person left without saying anything. This made Chu Qingyan feel very uneasy. Although the rules of Lan Village were there to ensure everyone's safety and identity, the rules of Lan Village were only effective within the village. After leaving, who would care about you? Moreover, she was in Jiang country. She was young and had obvious characteristics. If someone wanted to find her, her whereabouts could be exposed. Right now, her and Big Ice Cube's identity in Jiang country was sensitive. She didn't want to cause any more trouble. She turned her eyes. She glanced at Bai Xiaoxing's snow-white figure that was about to leave. Her eyes immediately lit up. Your Excellency Bai Xiaoxing. Your Excellency Bai Xiaoxing. Bai Xiaoxing heard the shout behind him. He stopped in his tracks and turned around with some surprise. Little girl, is there anything else? He didn't have the habit of chatting with people other than his wife. But this little girl didn't make him dislike her. Moreover, he had lost 2 rounds in a row. He didn't treat her like others. Your Excellency Bai Xiaoxing, you've helped me so much. I have nothing to repay you with, so I'll give you this magnifying glass. Chu Qingyan handed the magnifying glass from the cloth bag to him. Bai Xiaoxing did not take the pouch immediately. Instead, he looked past Chu Qingyan and looked at the people behind her who were avoiding his gaze. Unknowingly, a black flood dragon tattoo could be seen at the corner of their black robes. Southern Song Country? He heard that the Southern Song Country's royal family had recently obtained a treasure map. Unfortunately, the treasure map was so damaged that it was almost unrecognizable. No wonder they were eyeing this little girl's things. However, it had to be said that this little girl was very smart. With his status, these people would be a bit wary. What use does this highness have for this? He withdrew his gaze and looked back at Chu Qingyan. It's useless now, but that doesn't mean it won't be useful in the future. For example, when you're old and can't see clearly, you can use this magnifying glass to read books. Chu Qingyan very considerately analyzed. Bai Xiaoxing thought of his wife and thought that she might like it, so he nodded his head. That sounds pretty good. Bai Xiaoxing had the people from the Blue Manor take the item away. Now that the hot potato had been dealt with, Chu Qingyan felt the burning gaze on her back disappear. Her brows relaxed. When the other party was about to leave again, Chu Qingyan suddenly smiled playfully. That's right, Your Excellency Bai Xiaoxing. Actually, there's an answer to your previous question. He helped her solve her problem, so she should return the favor, right? Chapter 431. Oh, Bai Xiaoxing once again stood in front of her. His eyes lit up as he looked at her with interest. I'd like to hear the details. Chu Qingyan smiled mischievously. Although there's no answer to that question from a biological point of view, from a brain teaser point of view, it's the chicken first, then the egg. Why is that? Eggs, the chicken comes first, the egg comes later. Of course, the chicken comes first. Bai Xiaoxing was startled at first. Then he suddenly smiled. He didn't think that Chu Qingyan was teasing him. So that's how it is. Young lady, you're quite interesting. Bai Xiaoxing looked at her deeply. Chu Qingyan subconsciously took a step back. Generally, when someone said that you were interesting, there were a few possibilities. First, they had taken a fancy to you. Second, they were sarcastically saying that the other party had already taken notice of you, and you were going to be unlucky. What about the third one? She hadn't thought of it yet. She felt that the first possibility was impossible, but the second one was possible. Bai Xiaoxing saw her reaction and laughed heartily. Young lady, you're not bad. If there's a chance to see you again. After saying this, he did not say anything else. He only smiled and left. Chu Qingyan looked at his back view and couldn't help but laugh. This kind of person was quite interesting. She thought of the third possibility, which was admiration. But she didn't think that there was anything about her that could catch his eye. Chu Qingyan thought that in Bai Xiaoxing's eyes, there weren't many people who could make him stumped. This person in front of her was one of them. If he reluctantly remembered her, perhaps he could turn the tables when they met in the future. After Bai Xiaoxing left, Higashio Motetsu leisurely walked to her side. He couldn't hide the surprise on his face. But with the mask, Chu Qingyan couldn't see it. Young lady, although the method of changing the target isn't brilliant, it's very practical, he commented. Chu Qingyan shrugged. It's just a stopgap measure. At this time, do you have a better idea? Higashio Motetsu nodded. He had to admit that she had indeed made those people who had bad intentions give up. But don't you think it's a pity? You're giving away your things to someone else just like that. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan's lips curled up into a wide smile. It's not a pity. If she wanted as much as she wanted, she could have as much as she wanted. In any case, she had the omnipotent with spirit. Hee. Higashio Motetsu heard her sneaky smile and couldn't help but laugh. This little girl's idea was very big, so he didn't have to worry about it. You still have a token in your hand. Where are you going? Higashio Motetsu asked her. This question stumped Chu Qingyan. She rubbed the nameless tablet with her fingers and fell into deep thought. She had already found the whereabouts of the ice crystal flower that she wanted. She would be able to get it once she left Lawn Manor. The whereabouts of the love grass were also known, but the information was not complete. But where else could he exchange for information in Lanzhuang? Why don't we go to the auction house and have a look? Higashio Motetsu saw that she was a little embarrassed and offered a suggestion. Auction house. Why does this name sound so modern? Could it be that the founder of this underground lawn manor was also a transmigrator? Chu Qingyan clicked her tongue. Could it be that transmigrating now was the same as going abroad, where one could transmigrate in a flash? And the people of Lawn Manor will provide something on the stage and then let the people below bid. If the owner of the item catches their eye, then the deal can be made. Higashio Motetsu explained. In fact, this was the main reason why he came to Lawn Manor. That's good. Chu Qingyan nodded. Thus, the two of them walked together to the auction house. When they arrived at the auction house, Chu Qingyan felt like she was in a modern auction house. There was a large square stage covered in red cloth. 3 sides of the stage were surrounded by gold pillars and silver chains. In the middle of the stage, there was a display table and a gong. At this time, the auction had not officially started yet. Normally, this was the main event of Lawn Manor's transactions. Before entering, everyone had to pay 1,000 silver taels. It was said that it was the entrance fee. 1,000 silver taels was not a small amount. It could be seen that the people who stayed were all rich. Chu Qingyan did not let Higashio Motetsu help her pay. She took out 1,000 silver taels and gave it to the guard. Higashio Motetsu raised his eyebrows. Little girl, you don't need to be so polite with this young master. I'm not being polite with you. It's just that I can do it myself. I don't want to trouble others. Besides, if you come up with another condition, I won't be able to handle it. Chu Qingyan said to him in a natural and unrestrained manner. Higashio Motetsu's eyes deeply looked at her as she went to find a seat. He had been in Jianghu for so many years. If he could rely on any woman he met, he would have already stuck to her. Even if he rejected her, he would reject her. He was not as straightforward as her. She really did not covet a single cent from others. This was the side of her that was different from other women. She was independent and did not rely on others. At the same time, she was also self-reliant. A long time later, Higashio Motetsu recalled how she had unknowingly taken root in his heart all these years. When he recalled how they met and got to know each other, he understood that no matter how hard a person's heart was, they would not be able to resist the invasion of mist like little by little. There was no need to deliberately do it. Just a glance, an action, a sentence was enough. By the time he finally realized, he had already fallen in her trap and was unable to extricate himself. But for Chu Qingyan, this was not a big deal. When she was in a modern era, her parents were not around. She grew up with her grandparents. Wasn't there a saying that the children of the poor take charge of the family at an early age? When she was young, her family was not rich. So she preferred the feeling of being independent and self-reliant rather than relying on others. But because her parents were not around when she was young, she did not act coquettishly, nor did she let herself be. So when she met Xiao Su, she slowly revealed the desire in her subconscious, who told her to be only 10 years old this year. And Xiao Su satisfied all the aspects she wanted. He was steady, knowledgeable, cold on the outside, gentle on the inside, tolerant, wise. He was a teacher, a friend, and an elder. She could forget her real age, act coquettishly to him, plucked the hair on his head and returned to the childhood that she could only wish for but could not ask for. So sometimes, when she met someone, fate was very important. The opportunity was also very important. And when it came to money, her family's big ice cube had asked Hong not to shortchange her monthly allowance since the last time she went shopping. Big Ice Cube had always been generous to her. Now that she was a little rich woman also had her pride. How could she accept other people's payment? Chu Qingyan did not notice his gaze. Instead, she focused on finding 2 seats with an excellent view and not too conspicuous. After she sat down, she looked at him and waved. This feeling was really strange. It was as if she had returned to the time when they went to the freshmen's welcome party together in the dormitory. She was also standing alone while the others came slowly. It was a pity that all of this could only be left in her memory. Higashio Motetsu looked at her happily waving at him. He could not help but curve his almond-shaped eyes and strode toward her. Little girl, this young master seems to be more and more interested in you. Chapter 432. When they sat down, the traders who participated in the auction came one after another. At this time, the venue was a little dark, and there was even some white smoke coming out of nowhere. If they wanted to create a misty scene, they were obviously thinking too much. She looked at those green masks with fangs and felt that she had mistakenly entered the hell of ghosts and snakes. She didn't understand what the owner of the underground lawn manor was thinking. Fortunately, she didn't have a heart attack. Otherwise, she would have really gone to hell. The dozens of tables were gradually filled. In front of Chu Qingyan sat a man wearing a black impermanence mask. Behind him sat a man wearing a white impermanence mask, and on the right was a judge's mask. Fortunately, Higashio Motetsu, next to her, was not wearing the mask of King Yenluo. Otherwise, she really would have thought that she was not participating in an auction, but a trial of hell. These people basically didn't know each other, unless they brought their own people. So they each occupied a table. However, gossip couldn't cover the boundary of identity. Have you heard? Among the 3 items auctioned today, one of them is a precious sword that is hard to get. A man wearing a bull mask began to speak. Precious sword? It can't be that bronze sword, right? The man wearing a horse mask said in surprise. I heard about it too. It seems to be that bronze sword. The snake-faced man in front echoed. Yes, it's the bronze sword. I heard that 10 years ago, it was in the hands of the number 1 swordsman in the martial arts world. Later, this swordsman died and disappeared. I didn't expect it to appear here today. The bull man shook his head and sighed. It was unknown whether he was lamenting the early death of the swordsman or the reappearance of the bronze sword. What is the bronze sword? Is it very powerful? Chu Qingyan asked in a low voice. She knew nothing about the martial arts world. She only felt that the name of the sword was quite domineering. However, the people around her couldn't help but exclaim, which aroused her curiosity. Higashio Motetsu smiled. It could be ranked 3rd on the list of weapons. Do you think it's powerful? That's pretty impressive. Chu Qingyan nodded. What about the 1st and 2nd place? Ranked 1st is the fiery silkworm saber, which is in the hands of the Wulin Alliance's Chiohe. Ranked 2nd is the lingering whip, which is said to be in the collection of a princess of a certain country. As for which country it is, this young master has not researched further, Higashio Motetsu replied. You really know a lot. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but praise. Higashio Motetsu smoothed the creases on his sleeves and smiled faintly. He came from the Jianghu, so he had to know these things. He had to know himself and his enemy. Otherwise, how could he take over the Moon Palace in the future? Today, apart from the bronze sword, there are 2 other treasures. One is the heartless pearl, and the other is the treasure in the palm. Higashio Motetsu took the initiative to tell her. What are heartless bead and palm treasure? Chu Qingyan blushed with shame. She really knew too little about these things. She didn't know if she would be mistaken as Granny Lu, who had just entered the Grandview Garden for the first time. Higashio Motetsu didn't laugh at her because of this. He explained, the heartless bead can be used to avoid poison. With it, common poisons are basically useless. It is usually used for self-defense. The treasure in the palm is actually a fruit. Fruit? Chu Qingyin raised her eyebrows in disbelief. If it was just a simple fruit, I'm afraid it wouldn't have the qualifications to be on the trading platform, right? You're pretty smart. Higashio Motetsu smiled, but there was no praise in his words. He looked at the empty stage and smiled ambiguously. The treasure in the palm has another name. It's called the ginseng fruit. It's said that eating it can prolong one's life and has the effect of beautifying one's skin. It can also greatly increase one's power, but who knows? He said the last sentence very softly. Even if Chu Qingyin was sitting next to him, she still didn't hear it clearly. Chi. This reminds me of the ginseng fruit in Journey to the West. I didn't think there would be such a name here. The effects are almost the same. Chu Qingyin couldn't help but smile. That's right, you came to Lanzhuang. You must have something to trade, right? Could it be one of these three? Chu Qingyin unintentionally asked, but it made Higashio Motetsu withdraw his smile. That's right. Guess which one this young master wants. Chu Qingyin stared blankly. She really hit the nail on the head. She made an irresponsible guess. You wouldn't want that treasure in the palm, right? Higashio Motetsu lowered his eyebrows and smiled. He casually patted her head. Little girl, not bad. You could even guess this. Slapping his hand away, Chu Qingyin smoothed her hair and glared at him. What do you want that for? You're so young, and you're already worried that you won't live long? Or do you want to increase your power? Higashio Motetsu took back his hand and leaned back in his chair. His gaze was lazy. My family's old man wants it. Otherwise, why would this young master come here to suffer? If I have the time, I might as well spend it in wine and women. This kind of ambition? Chu Qingyin rolled her eyes at him. This was the first time she heard him mention his family. How can you say that? Isn't he your father? Father? Higashio Motetsu propped up his chin with one hand and leaned against the table. He sneered. He didn't know how many years it had been since he called him father. Seeing him like this, there seemed to be something wrong. Chu Qingyin thought for a moment and asked, Then where's your mother? The person leaning softly on the table suddenly stiffened. A complex expression flashed through his phoenix eyes. He then coldly spat out, dead. This cold aura was so oppressive that it made it hard for people to breathe. Chu Qingyin stared blankly for a moment. Her gaze fell on Higashio Motetsu, whose entire body was emitting a sorrowful mood. This was the first time she saw him look anything other than indifferent. Daunting, are you all right? I'm sorry, At this time, she knew that she had asked a question that she shouldn't have. Little girl, I'm just teasing you. The transaction is about to begin. Higashio Motetsu leaned back in his chair, his phoenix eyes slightly raised, as if the scene just now didn't exist. Chu Qingyin saw that he had returned to normal and sighed in relief. However, she still felt guilty. Everyone had secrets that they didn't know. She shouldn't mention this topic in the future. The gong sounded, and Chu Qingyin's gaze was attracted over. She saw that the previously empty stage was now filled with two people. They were a man and a woman with a golden boy and a jade girl. At the four corners of the stage stood a black-clothed person from Lanzhuang. It was obvious that this golden boy and jade girl were the hosts of this transaction. Welcome from all over the world to my Lanzhuang. Lanzhuang is honored. Everyone should know the rules. As long as you bring out something that can satisfy the buyer, the transaction will be considered a success. All right, let's not waste any more words. Let's bring out the first treasure. After speaking, a person wearing a tiger mask stepped onto the stage. Following behind him was a black-clothed person holding a tray. The item on the tray was covered with a red cloth. Chu Qingyin, who already knew what the treasures were, was not as focused as the others. Her gaze scanned the seats around her. At first, she was aimless, but then she was attracted by a blue figure. Chapter 433. To be exact, what attracted her was the blue impatience exposed under the cloak. Ever since she came to the Jiang Kingdom to look for herbs, she paid more attention to everything in the Jiang Kingdom. For example, this woman from the Jiang Kingdom who appeared at the Lawn Manor auction. Someone who could embroider the flower of the country on her clothes was either a relative of the royal family or of noble status. Moreover, this person was a woman. Judging from her clothes, she should be very young. She remembered that in the Jiang Kingdom's palace, there was only the third princess other than the empress. There were not many royal family members in the Jiang Kingdom, but there were several female relatives. She wondered who this person was. Chu Qingyin was so engrossed in her observation that she only came back to her senses when the gong sounded. "Little girl, the bronze sword has been traded away," Higashio Motetsu said in her ear. "Who bought it?" Chu Qingyin looked around. "See for yourself." Higashio Motetsu motioned to her and then pointed to the man in gray who was about to go on stage. Chu Qingyin realized that the man in gray had traded a painting with that person. What's the background of that painting? She didn't pay attention just now, so she didn't know what was going on now. It's a peony painting by a famous painter in the Junlan Kingdom 100 years ago. Higashio Motetsu was a little helpless about her absent-mindedness. She was even distracted by an auction. Chu Qingyin nodded guiltily. She wanted to ask who the painter was, but she felt that she was too noisy. As expected, she didn't know anything and didn't have a right to speak. "Okay, then let's bid for the second treasure now." "Please bring it up," Jin Tong said methodically. As he spoke, a slim woman wearing a white rabbit mask walked up. Behind her was a man in black from the Lawn Manor, holding a tray. This tray was much smaller than the previous one. Chu Qingyin thought that it should be the heartless pearl. Sure enough, the white rabbit woman removed the red silk with her own hands, revealing a bead with a faint green light. The woman held the bead and faced the crowd, clearly saying, "The heartless bead can ward off hundreds of poisons. As for its other uses, I won't explain too much." Once the heartless bead was revealed, as long as the main benefit was mentioned, it would be enough to attract people's attention. Out of the corner of her eye, Chu Qingyin noticed that the blue-clothed woman sitting not far away suddenly sat up straight. She was no longer as indifferent as before. Chu Qingyin pondered in her heart. This person probably came for the heartless bead. The heartless pearl repels poison and insects, and is a must-have item at home. It's normal for her to take a fancy to it. "Little girl, do you want to bid for the heartless bead?" Higashio Motetsu saw that she was no longer daydreaming, so he asked. Chu Qingyin wanted to shake her head, but when she thought of Big Ice Cube, she suddenly had the idea of competing. "Yes." Chu Qingyin nodded. Big Ice Cube's identity was sensitive, and he was often targeted by thieves. If she had the heartless bead with her, she could avoid some unnecessary trouble. At this time, the host wearing the jade mask asked, "May I ask what your conditions are?" "A woman's appearance and skin are the most important. My purpose here is very simple. I want to see if you have any ointment or secret formula that can slow down the aging of skin. Except for this, I won't accept anything else." As soon as the white rabbit woman said this, the crowd began to whisper. Her condition was enough to make more than 90% of the people who wanted to bid for the heartless bead shrink back. Because most of the people who participated in the auction were men, those who could meet this condition were either women who had the ointment or secret formula, or were engaged in the women's cosmetics business, or were doctors who researched medicinal herbs. But looking at the reaction of the people below the stage, there were very few people who could meet this condition. Chu Qingyin touched her bag and smiled slyly. She was really a blind cat that had run into a dead mouse. She had asked Yin Luo to help her develop this medicine, but it actually came in handy at this time. Sensing the movement beside him, Higashio Motetsu turned to look at her. He was surprised to see her relaxed appearance. "You came prepared?" Chu Qingyin pursed her lips and smiled. "I hit the jackpot." At this time, the host knocked on the gong. "The auction begins. Go ahead." Higashio Motetsu patted her shoulder. "No, let's see what the others have first." Chu Qingyin wasn't in a hurry. Sometimes, the last one has the advantage. Higashio Motetsu understood. As soon as the host finished, Chu Qingyin saw that the woman in blue looked around. Seeing that no one moved, her eyebrows revealed a trace of complacency. Then she raised the plate on the table. "I'll do it." "Well, we have the first competitor. May I ask this lady, what goods do you bring?" The host immediately asked. Everyone turned their eyes to the woman in blue who slowly stood up. They were very curious about what she would take out in exchange. "I bring Yuji ointment." This Yuji ointment must have heard of it. The woman in blue's voice was a little delicate, as if deliberately, but in the man's ears, he enjoyed it very much. She took out the white jade bottle from her sleeve and showed it to everyone. The eyes of the woman with the white rabbit mask lit up slightly when the woman in blue said the words, Yuji ointment. Obviously, she was a little tempted. This Yuji ointment was developed by the famous Dr. Tong Xiao. She is best at women's ointment. As for its authenticity, you could try it first. The woman in blue handed the white jade bottle to the man in black beside her. He stepped forward and handed the bottle to the woman with the white rabbit mask. In fact, Chu Qingyan didn't know about the beauty ointment of ancient women. When she saw the woman with the white jade mask open the bottle, her eyes flashed with the same light as her roommate's eyes when she participated in the shopping on Singles Day. She was so happy and excited that she wanted to get it immediately. This Yuji ointment should be the best beauty ointment. However, she was confident about what she brought because even Yin Luo, who was arrogant, loved it so much that she couldn't put it down. It proved that her ointment was more valuable. This Yuji ointment is authentic. I have used it before. Hearing the words of the woman with the white jade mask, everyone felt that the heartless bead had almost found its owner. They also wanted the heartless bead very much. Unfortunately, the conditions proposed by the other party were too harsh. It was a pity that they couldn't meet it. Sister, do you like this Yuji ointment? Although the woman in blue was asking, it was obvious that she had the upper hand. The woman with the white rabbit mask hesitated. She had used the Yuji ointment before and knew its magical effect. However, she came here today to try a different beauty ointment. People had a strange heart. This Yuji ointment is good, but I want to see if there is a second competitor. The woman with the white rabbit mask closed the bottle and looked at the audience. Is there anyone else who wants to compete? If there is no one, then the owner will decide whether to trade with the first girl who raised the card. The Jade Woman host asked. The woman with the white rabbit mask hesitated, and her eyes kept sweeping the audience. This made the woman in blue a little annoyed. Unfortunately, the decision was in her hands, so she couldn't say anything. She couldn't help but snort. Anyway, she was not in a hurry. This heartless bead would be hers sooner or later. She didn't believe that there would be someone who could take out a more precious top medicine than the Yuji ointment. Just as everyone thought that this round was about to end, Chu Qingyan raised her sign. I will. Chapter 434. As soon as the crisp voice fell, it immediately attracted the attention of the crowd. Inquiring, doubtful, and contemptuous gazes were thrown one after another. As soon as she saw that Chu Qingyan was young and dared to compete with her, the blue-clothed woman was somewhat annoyed at the sudden appearance of Cheng Yaojin, but also very disdainful, because she didn't believe that she could take out anything to compete with the Jade Muscle Cream. That white rabbit mask woman was originally somewhat happy, but when she saw Chu Qingyan stand up, her eyes suddenly turned to disappointment. What kind of amazing beauty medicine could a little child who hadn't even grown hair give her? She guessed that it was a child of some aristocratic family who was playing around. Most of the people under the stage had the same thoughts as the white rabbit mask woman, but there were a few people who had just come out of a funny room. For Chu Qingyan's performance just now was still vivid in their minds. To be able to take out a magnifying glass, this kind of thing that had never been heard of before, they thought that there must be other treasures. They were different from the other spectators who looked down on the play. On the contrary, they were very much looking forward to Chu Qingyan to give them other unexpected surprises. Little girl, what do you want to exchange? The golden boy host asked. His tone was neither humble nor arrogant. I also have a bottle of beauty cream. I want this big sister to see. Chu Qingyan generously said. This big sister doesn't believe that there is any ointment in this world that can compare to the Jade Muscle Cream. The blue-clothed woman looked at Chu Qingyan with contempt. Her words contained a sneer. When the blue-clothed woman's words fell, although the white rabbit mask woman felt that her words were unpleasant to hear, she also doubted whether Chu Qingyan could take out the beauty medicine that she wanted. The world is big. There are all kinds of rare treasures. Nothing is impossible. A familiar voice like aged wine sounded. This voice wasn't loud, but it succeeded in making everyone's heart tremble. This voice came from under the stage. Everyone turned their heads to look, only to see the fox mask wearing all-knowing man of Gonghu sitting in the darkest corner, at this time holding a teacup, drinking tea. If he didn't take the initiative to speak, it was estimated that no one would notice his existence. Bai Xiaosheng actually spoke up for her. Everyone thought that since even Bai Xiaosheng had spoken up for her, they might as well see what she had to offer. Chu Qingyin didn't expect that Bai Xiaosheng would also come to the auction and help her. She cast a grateful look at him. Bai Xiaosheng felt Chu Qingyin's gaze on him, and a faint smile appeared on his face. He was not a busybody, but he was curious as to what the young lady was going to take out. He guessed that the item she wanted to trade with him was very likely the item she wanted to trade with him again. Higashio Motetsu couldn't help but laugh at this time. Little girl, it's up to you. Blind their eyes. What he enjoyed the most was when others thought they were infallible and then had a huge reversal, slapping them in the face. This kind of reversal was the most fun. Chu Qingyin nodded. She felt that many people in this world were like this. They like to judge others by their own standards. It was a pity that you ignored me at this moment. Later, I will make you unworthy of me. Then, little girl, please show us your treasure. The golden boy host nodded to her. Chu Qingyin didn't say anything more. She directly took out a small green box from her bag. The box was also made of bamboo. It looked simple and had a faint bamboo fragrance. Although it was the first time seeing this kind of bamboo box, it was somewhat novel. However, it was more disdain. She couldn't even take out an ordinary sandalwood box. How poor was this family? The blue-clothed woman shook her head. This thing dared to be mentioned in the same breath as her white jade bottle? What a joke. However, the white rabbit-masked woman was a bit curious about this box. Chu Qingyin didn't care what they were thinking. This box was made by her based on modern jewelry boxes. It was light and easy to carry. She thought it was troublesome. Moreover, the residents had a lot of bamboo. She let Muling chop a few for her to make a box. Using materials from the place, it wouldn't be a waste of money. Moreover, this was a beauty. If you don't understand, don't talk nonsense. The beauty cream that I brought is called Snow Heart Lipstick. When Chu Qingyin finished speaking, Bai Xiaosheng wasn't surprised. It was something that he didn't know. However, it sounded quite novel. Snow Heart Lipstick? What is this? It can't be that it's just to fool people, right? In twos and threes, they whispered. Most of them were suspicious of the Snow Heart Lipstick. Chu Qingyin opened the box and turned the lid to the bottom. Tilting her palm slightly, the palm-sized thing was displayed in front of everyone. The bottom of the box was covered with white brocade. In the middle of the box, there were two concave places. In each place, there were two bamboo tubes that were as thick as a thumb. From afar, it was white and too green. The appearance was quite pleasing. But the blue-clothed woman started to speak. Little girl, you can't be saying that these two bamboo tubes have a beauty effect? The people here are not blind. Don't use this kind of thing to fool us. That's right, that's right. The man beside the blue-clothed woman echoed. The blue-clothed woman's words were also the thoughts of many people present. Even the gaze that they looked at Chu Qingyin with was a bit more disdain. Wearing a mask, no one will know who you are. Only then would you dare to look at people through the crack of the door. TSK, TSK, TSK. Little girl, don't disappoint this young master. This young master believes in you. Higashio Motetsu was watching the show from the side. Chu Qingyin rolled her eyes at him and then looked at the white rabbit mask woman on the stage. It was as if she had returned to the time when she was selling products to passers-by on the street. That was her part-time job. Everyone knows that winter is the driest in 4 seasons. Every time at this time, our skin will suffer the ravages of this bad weather. But fortunately, our fingers can still be protected by a hand warmer. We can wear more clothes to keep warm. We can wear a hat to protect our ears. We can wear thick shoes and socks to protect our feet. But there is one place that we can't protect. That is our lips, because when we eat, we can't do without it. When we talk, we can't do without it. Our lips often shed and bleed because of the cold and dry. It is very uncomfortable. Chu Qingyin spoke with assurance. She didn't notice that the crowd slowly quieted down because of her words. Even the white rabbit mask woman was concerned. She continued, because of this worry, there was a doctor who developed the Xiao lipstick. Chu Qingyan took out one of the bamboo tubes, which was engraved with the word Xiao. She put the box on the table and then held the bamboo tube with both hands. She smiled at the stage. Xiao can moisturize the lips, keep them moist and glossy. It can fight against the bad weather and protect our lips. As she spoke, Chu Qingyan removed the lid, revealing a sharp, snow-white tip. Then, as everyone watched intently, Chu Qingyan's lips curled into a smile. She held the bamboo with one hand and held the lower half of the bamboo tube with 2 fingers of her other hand. Then, she twirled her fingers and the snow-white tip slowly rose. Everyone was shocked. The little lotus showed its sharp corners and rose little by little. Chapter 435. It had to be said that the way this cream appeared was amazing. No one would have thought that a small bamboo pipe would be so flexible. And in winter, dry and cracked lips were indeed a problem that people had been annoyed. Even if they didn't go out in winter, they always had to go out to socialize. After hearing Chu Qingyan's words, some people subconsciously licked their peeling lips. The fingers of the woman with the white rabbit mask trembled slightly. It was the first time she had seen this thing. Cream, smeared on our lips, it can keep the lips moist and not easily absorbed by low temperature, Chu Qingyan said, then handed the cream to the black man in lingerie. The black man immediately sent the cream to the stage. When the woman with the white rabbit mask saw the light bamboo pipe, Chu Qingyan timely said, "Sister, you could try to smear the cream on the back of your hand and feel it." People were alert. Although Chu Qingyan's words were very exciting, the woman with the white rabbit mask didn't dare to smear it on her lips. So when Chu Qingyan reminded her, the woman with the white rabbit mask didn't hesitate anymore. She smeared the cream on the back of her hand. The cold feeling was very comfortable. Soon, there was a clear difference between the smeared place and the unsmeared place. Today, in order to appear, she deliberately wore a light green gauze skirt, just standing on the stage for a short while the back of her hand had been dry and slightly painful. After smearing the cream, the pain in that place was obviously reduced a lot. And miraculously, the slightly cracked skin had obviously healed. The woman with the white rabbit mask felt very surprised, and she smelled it. This cream also had a light floral fragrance, refreshing the heart, transparent color. If it was smeared on people's lips, it could highlight the full lips. She was excited. This dash, she was stunned. "It's amazing." The words of the woman with the white rabbit mask made everyone look at Chu Qingyan's eyes a little different. That woman didn't need to deceive people. Most of the people who could appear here were people who didn't show their emotions. At this time, they were so surprised. It didn't seem to be fake. It could only be said that this thing was really amazing. Ever since Chu Qingyan took out the cream, the blue-clothed woman's expression had turned ugly. However, everyone loved beauty, so she calmed herself down and watched Chu Qingyan's next move. It was only when the white rabbit masked woman cried out in surprise that her expression changed. Was she going to get nothing this time? The all-knowing man of Gonghu shook his head and smiled. It was really interesting. It seemed that his decision to not accept the challenge was right. Otherwise, today he would make a fool of himself 3 times. Dongting Wanyu looked at the cream in the hands of the woman with the white rabbit mask and turned to look at Chu Qingyan. This little girl had once again impressed him. He really didn't know how her little head could hold so many wonderful ideas. "Little girl, what's the other thing in your box?" The woman with the white rabbit mask was obviously very satisfied with this cream. She held it tightly in her hand and didn't let it go. Then she looked at the other bamboo tube. She was curious and couldn't wait to hear Chu Qingyan's explanation. Seeing that the other party had successfully taken the bait, Chu Qingyan's heart was half at ease. She took out another bamboo tube from the box and used the same method to spin it in front of everyone. "This is the heart ointment. I know that many ladies like to apply rouge on their lips. My heart ointment has the same effect as rouge, and it is used to add color to the lips. However, my heart ointment does not fade easily, and its color is different from rouge. You can apply the heart ointment after applying the cream. It can be used together with the cream, or it can be used on its own. Because of her words, everyone's gaze focused on the pink column-shaped heart ointment that was exposed at the tip. It was the first time they had seen this color. They were already used to women's red makeup. As the name implied, red makeup was red rouge. They really didn't know what a woman would look like if she put on pink. Some people had already begun to imagine. When the woman with the white jade mask saw the color, she had been fascinated. She had been tired of the red lips. Every woman had the same red lips. If she could have a pair of pink lips, how charming would it be? At this time, Bai Xiaosheng was also fantasizing. If his wife put on this lipstick, what would it be like? He was already feeling restless and restless. Chu Qingyan saw the woman with the white jade mask's fascinated look. She knew that she had almost succeeded. She didn't pretend to be pretentious. She closed the box and handed the heart ointment to the man in black. The woman with the white jade mask almost couldn't wait to take the heart ointment from the man in black. She tested it on the back of her hand again. The little girl didn't lie to her. This color was really beautiful. It was pink and tender, like a budding water lily. It was mysterious and serene. When she smelled it, there was the faint fragrance of a lotus, full of the smell of the seductive smell. The woman with the white jade mask admired it as if there was no one around. She had been looking for something for so many years. Finally, it was complete at this moment. She simply wanted to look up to the sky and laugh. Fortunately, her reason stopped her at the last moment. Little girl, how about I exchange my heartless pearl for these two things? The white jade-masked woman held one in each hand and did not return them to Chu Qingyan. She could not bear to let go of them. Although she tried to suppress her voice, everyone could hear that her voice was shaky and slightly agitated. Okay, beauty ointment for beauty. I just got it from someone else, but I'm still young and can't use it. So, I exchanged it with my sister. Chu Qingyan smiled sweetly. Her words were very pleasing to the ears. The woman laughed until her eyes couldn't be seen. Okay, deal. As soon as the voice fell, the golden boy host hit the gong. The exchange of heartless pearl and snow heart lipstick is successful. As soon as the words came out, the second round of exchange came to an end. The woman with the white rabbit mask bowed to Chu Qingyan and then walked down the stage happily. 1 for 2. She took advantage. The woman with the white jade mask was very shrewd in her mind. Unfortunately, she didn't know that Chu Qingyan could have as many as she wanted because she had two powerful helpers. One was Mu Ling, who had a group of apprentices, and the other was Yen Luo, who was good at making all kinds of medicine. She could have as many snow heart lipsticks as she wanted. Moreover, these two lipsticks didn't waste much material at all. They were all made from local materials. Who took advantage in the end? The blue-robed woman gripped the armrest tightly, unwilling to give up. She looked at Chu Qingyan with malice. But the situation couldn't be changed. Here was Lan Manor. She couldn't act rashly. She could only watch the heartless pearl and snow heart lipstick being taken away by the man in black. Princess, don't be sad. We will help you search all over Jiang country. We will definitely find a poison avoidance pearl, like the heartless pearl. The subordinate beside the woman in blue whispered, I'm unlucky today. You continue to search. If you see the little girl, just take her directly. I don't believe that anyone dares to go against me. The woman in blue said unwillingly, Yes. Chapter 436. Chu Qingyan could feel the burning resentment from the woman in blue, but she didn't take it to heart. If you can afford to play, you must also be able to afford to lose. The winner takes all. There was nothing to be afraid of. Moreover, she wanted to give this to Big Ice Cube. She wouldn't let anyone else have it. Chu Qingyan probably didn't know that she had always been gentle and tolerant, but as long as it was related to Xiao Su, she would never hide her stubbornness. The best things should be given to the best and most special person. Chu Qingyan's sparkling eyes made Higashio Motetsu feel uncomfortable. Although he was happy for Chu Qingyan, he felt uncomfortable when he thought about who she was going to give this to. This was already the third time today that he doubted how Xiao Su was better than him. What did he do to deserve this little girl's kindness? The second round of exchange ended, and there was only one round left. When everyone was focused on the third round of the auction, Xiao said to his subordinate, "Go find the owner of White Sparrow House and see what she wants." The owner of White Sparrow House was the woman with the white rabbit mask. She liked to study women's accessories the most. The subordinate agreed without any surprise. Ever since he married the sect leader's wife, his master would often search for things that women liked to give to his wife. His subordinates were already used to running errands. However, he was a little confused. "Master, why don't you go directly to that little girl? She probably has something like this on her. Why are you asking such nonsense?" Xiao's expression changed slightly. He had already lost to her twice. How could he take the initiative to look for her? Although he lost, he still had a backbone, okay? He would rather look for the owner of White Sparrow House to exchange. Yes, the subordinate also had some understanding in his heart. It seemed that his master felt embarrassed, but as a loyal subordinate, he couldn't expose him. No one noticed the small episode here, and the auction had already begun. An old man dressed like a scholar walked onto the stage. He removed the red cloth, revealing a miniature doll-shaped ginseng fruit that was about the size of 2 adult fists. Chu Qingyan had already completed the purpose of this trip. When she saw the third item being brought up, she said to Higashio Motetsu, "Here's what you want. If his conditions are too harsh, do you still have any treasures to help?" Higashio Motetsu said with a faint smile. Chu Qingyan looked at him suspiciously and said, "Didn't you come here for it? I don't believe that you didn't prepare it." Hearing this, Dongting Wangyu smiled. This little girl was getting harder and harder to fool. "Let's hear his conditions first." Dongting Wangyu stopped teasing her. In fact, he wasn't 100% sure, but he had done his homework. The scholar old man said, "My ginseng fruit blooms once every 50 years and bears fruit once every 50 years. It's very precious. If a woman eats it, it can nourish her beauty, and if a man eats it, it can prolong his life. It's a sacred item among tonics. At the same time, it's also good for martial artists. It's equivalent to reshaping one's meridians, and it's extremely helpful for improving one's internal strength." As soon as he finished speaking, there was already a commotion below the stage. Which woman didn't want to nourish her beauty? Which man didn't want to prolong his life? Which martial artist didn't want to improve their skills to the next level? This ginseng fruit was destined to be the hot item tonight. Chu Qingyan looked at the people who were rubbing their hands and said to Higashio Motetsu, "It seems that you have a lot of competitors. It's a good thing. Of course, there are many people scrambling for it." Higashio Motetsu said this, but he didn't really care. Chu Qingyan glanced at him. Wasn't this person here for the ginseng fruit? Why did he snort at the mention of the ginseng fruit? Really strange. But she was curious. What was the exchange condition for this ginseng fruit? This question was asked by the Jade Woman, who was the host, on behalf of everyone. "Excuse me, what is your condition?" She heard the scholar old man reply. In this old man's life, there is nothing in this old man's eyes. Although it is said that money is just a worldly possession, but this old man loves worldly possessions. Therefore, this ginseng fruit will go to the highest bidder. As soon as these words came out, everyone relaxed. This condition was the easiest among the 3 rounds, because the conditions of the first 2 rounds were too harsh. They didn't even have a chance to try. Sure enough, I didn't guess wrong. Higashio Motetsu knocked on the table, raised his phoenix eyes, and leisurely said, "Then you should have enough money, right?" Chu Qingyan, who was paying attention to the stage, asked, "How can I have enough money? In any case, as long as this young master is able to make it worth it, the rest has nothing to do with this young master." He didn't directly answer. His expression was still lazy and indifferent. Chu Qingyan shrugged her shoulders and continued to listen to the people on the stage. "Good. The starting price is 10,000 silver. After asking the scholar old man, the host said to the people under the stage. As soon as his voice fell, the sound of gongs and drums resounded. 10,000 silver? Really high. But he wasn't afraid of the price being high. He was afraid of the price increasing. 11,000 silver. Someone increased the price. Sitting in front of Chu Qingyan, the Black Impermanence masked man raised his paddle. 13,000 silver. White impermanence raised his paddle, 15,000 silver. Black impermanence raised his paddle, 20,000 silver. 25,000 silver. Chu Qingyin's feeling of this nouveau riche spending money like it was nothing at first, but now she was calm. But she was very curious about why Higashio Motetsu didn't raise his paddle. Why don't you raise your paddle? Chu Qingyin couldn't help but ask. Waste of saliva. Wait until the end. Higashio Motetsu said that he was very lazy. He didn't like the noisy bidding at the beginning. Chu Qingyin touched her head. Indeed, the person who started to bid might not be able to laugh until the end, and the latecomers would have an easier time catching up. Soon the price reached 100,000 silver. At the beginning, there were many people who wanted to follow, but now the number of people who wanted to bid could be counted with two hands. 150,000 silver. Higashio Motetsu raised his paddle and directly added 50,000 silver. It was true that one would amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. Chu Qingyin was stunned by his nouveau riche aura. 200,000 silver. The blue-clothed woman raised her paddle and then provocatively looked at Higashio Motetsu. She originally didn't want to bid, but when she saw Higashio Motetsu raise his paddle, she felt uncomfortable. She could see that Chu Qingyin and him were on the same side, so she wanted to give them more trouble, at least let them bleed more. Princess, it's not good for you to be like this. Lord will be angry if he knows. The subordinate didn't dare to blatantly criticize her. He didn't have the qualifications, but he was really scared by his master. Don't be afraid. Even if I buy it, father will still like it. This ginseng fruit is a good thing. The blue-clothed woman indifferently replied. The subordinate was silent. He didn't agree, but he didn't dare to say anything. He was afraid of offending his master. 200,000 silver to buy a fruit. Lord will be angry. Chapter 437. 200,000 taels. Everyone present was shocked by the blue-clothed girl's wealth, and those who wanted to bid earlier all quieted down. Chu Qingyin pursed her lips. This fruit was even more expensive than Tang Seng's meat. One bite was worth 10,000 taels. At this time, Higashio Motetsu turned to her and said, "This young master is thirsty. Help this young master raise the price." Several crows suddenly flew over their heads. He was thirsty after just a few words. Chu Qingyin felt that this person was really too much. "How much money did you bring?" Chu Qingyin asked. "As long as you don't open your lion's mouth." Higashio Motetsu took the water bottle that she gave him earlier and drank contentedly. This ginseng fruit was not what he wanted. Whether he could get it or not, he just had to let nature take its course. Chu Qingyin sighed, but seeing that he had helped her, she raised her paddle. 200,001 taels. When her voice fell, Higashio Motetsu almost spat out the juice in his mouth. This girl was so arrogant. 200,001 taels. When everyone saw that it was this little girl who called out the price, they had to admit that she was quite smart. But generally speaking, normal people would not do such a thing, because the people who came here boasted of their noble status. They would not lower their face to call out a tale. But Chu Qingyin was not afraid. If you asked her, she would definitely answer you. What was face? Could it be eaten? Just now they had also seen this little girl and this man whispering together and knew that the two of them were together. Now that she called out a price to that blue-clothed girl, they were afraid that the two of them would meet. 200,001 taels. She can even call out a tale. The blue-clothed girl was somewhat shameless. Then she raised her paddle again. 210,000 taels. 210,001 taels. Chu Qingyin did not raise her voice like the blue-robed lady. Instead, she took her time to raise the price, one word at a time. Despicable. The blue-clothed girl raised the price again. 220,000 taels. 220,001 taels. Chu Qingyin continued to raise her paddle. Anyway, no matter how much the other party wanted, she would only add one tael. Higashio Motetsu was very satisfied with her approach. Anyway, as long as she could outbid the other party, she would win. However, no matter how much she bet, it would be the same even if it was 1 or 200,000 taels. Therefore, Higashio Motetsu felt that the little girl could catch his eye. The key was that the two of them had similar values, and they were both thick-skinned. The people under the stage were watching the fun, while the people on the stage were laughing from ear to ear. The old scholar had never thought that his little ginseng fruit could be auctioned at such a high price. Anyway, no matter who bought it, he was happy to enjoy it. The blue-clothed woman gnashed her teeth. She just lost once, so how could she be willing to lose again? Just as she was about to raise her placard, her subordinate immediately pressed down on her placard and whispered, "Princess, you have to think twice before you act." However, the woman in blue had already lost her mind. How could she care so much? Get out of the way. The subordinate didn't dare to disobey and could only watch as his master raised the sign again. Soon, the price had reached 300,000 taels. Although bidding was a very boring thing, no one was impatient because they were also very curious about who would win the prize. 301,000 taels. It was obvious that the blue-clothed woman couldn't bear it anymore and could only raise the price by 1,000. 301,000 taels. Chu Qingyan still followed up with one tael. 301,002 taels. This time, the blue-clothed woman had learned her lesson. No longer for the so-called face. She directly followed Chu Qingyan and raised the price by one tael. Unfortunately, as the saying goes, the devil is 10. 301,202 taels and 1 Chu Qingyan casually retorted. PFFF, Higashio Motetsu couldn't help but be amused by the little girl's wit. He secretly gave her a thumbs up. Hey, don't just laugh. What's your bottom line? Chu Qingyan was already frightened by this bid. This fruit's price was really sky high. All right. 1 or 2 more rounds should be enough. It's not like this young master can't do without it. Hearing the little girl's impatience, Higashio Motetsu opened his mouth at this time. Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched. Are you teasing me? It's not like this young master can't do without it. Then why did he let her raise the price for so long? I'm just playing around. Don't take it seriously. Higashio Motetsu touched his chin and guiltily avoided her gaze. He really played big. She didn't understand the world of nouveau riches. Chu Qingyan took a deep breath and didn't want to bother with him anymore. 302,000. Chu Qingyan didn't raise the price by a single tael and directly said. The blue-clothed woman's heart was happy. She could raise the price again and blurted out. 302,001 taels. I'll let you have a taste of the grievances you gave me. Then she waited for Chu Qingyan to jump up and down, waiting for her to become impatient. Unfortunately, she waited for a moment, but the other party didn't raise the price. She suddenly had a bad premonition. She saw that Chu Qingyan had already put down her sign and was whispering to the person next to her. It seemed like she didn't intend to pay attention to this round of exchange. And the golden boy host on the stage had already stepped forward and said, "This ginseng fruit is 302,001 taels. Is there anyone who wants to bid higher than this young lady? No one else? Then we'll use 3 rings of the gong as the standard. If no one raises the price after 3 rings, then this ginseng fruit will be obtained by this young lady." 302,001 taels going once. The gong sounded. No one raised their sign. The blue-clothed woman's eyes were about to split open as she looked at Chu Qingyan. Was this person sure that she wasn't going to raise the price? 302,001 taels going twice. The gong sounded again. No one answered. 302,001 taels going thrice. The gong sounded for the last time. The blue-clothed woman was already in despair. Extreme joy begets sorrow? Good. This ginseng fruit is sold for 302,001 taels. Congratulations to this young lady. The blue-clothed woman's face was stiff as she listened to the words of the Jade Girl host. Even if there were 10,000 wild horses running through her heart, she still had to maintain her composure. She didn't know if her father knew that she spent so much money to buy this ginseng fruit. Would he be angry? She belatedly realized the seriousness of the matter. She pulled the scene back to the conversation between the two unscrupulous bidders. I don't want to play anymore. After the last bid, Chu Qingyan threw the sign to the person next to her. If you want it, then raise the price yourself. I don't want to participate. Higashio Motetsu took the sign and played with it a few times. Then he threw it back to the table. This young master also doesn't want to play anymore. You don't want to buy it for your father? Chu Qingyan was slightly surprised. It's good that it's worth it. This price has already exceeded the original value. This young master is not stupid. Higashio Motetsu's tone was lazy. He had just drunk the juice, so he felt that it was a bit sweet. Chu Qingyan opened her eyes wide. Then why did you ask me to raise the price? Wouldn't that be cheating that young lady? This young master doesn't find her pleasing to the eye. I want to raise the price and let her understand that in this world, she can't do whatever she wants. Higashio Motetsu snorted. Seeing that she was making things difficult for the little girl, he also didn't want her to be comfortable. Chu Qingyan shrugged her shoulders. Well, she met another willful master. However, Chu Qingyan didn't expect that this time's bid would bring her an unexpected disaster. Chapter 438. When the auction ended, it also meant that the Blue Manor's transaction had ended. Everyone needed to return to their rooms according to the rules and receive the things they obtained from the transaction. Then the Blue Manor's people would send them back. Chu Qingyan and Higashio Motetsu were about to return the way they came, but they were stopped by someone. She raised her head and saw that it was the blue-clothed woman. What advice does this young lady have? It was clear that she did not come with good intentions, but she could not lose, so Chu Qingyan asked with a smile. I don't have any advice. I just want to warn you. Next time, don't let this young lady see you. Otherwise, I will make you wish you were dead. The blue-clothed woman angrily lowered her voice and threatened. Isn't that the ginseng fruit what this young lady wants? No one forced you to do this, right? Don't you think that what you're saying is a bit excessive? If it was the previous Chu Qingyan, it would be better to avoid trouble and just laugh it off. But now she did not want to be pointed at by others and slandered. She put away her smile, and her tone was a bit cold. Who knows if all of you are colluding with that scholar to intentionally raise the price. The blue-clothed woman's words became more and more outrageous, but she was used to haggling over the smallest details. Since no one here knew each other, she no longer pretended to be a virtuous lady. When young ladies quarrel, a gentleman does not get involved. Higashio Motetsu crossed his arms as he watched from the side. He was very confident in the little girl's fighting strength. Chu Qingyan felt that this person was too funny, twisting words and forcing logic to this point. She was also drunk. This young lady, your paranoia is very serious. The Blue Manor's rules are there. What can we do? Then again, we originally wanted to bid for the ginseng fruit, but you kept on raising the price. We didn't bring enough money, so we could only give it up. Isn't this a good thing? Young lady, you can happily pay for what you want. Isn't that good? Why do you have to be so aggressive? Higashio Motetsu couldn't help but let out a sound. This little girl's self-justification was very good. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that this girl was competing with them. But what she said was reasonable. At least it could make the other party speechless. The blue-clothed woman was asked several questions by Chu Qingyan, and she had nothing to say. She pointed with a trembling finger at Chu Qingyan and Higashio Motetsu. You are simply too much. Everyone knows that the ginseng fruit is not worth this price. Chu Qingyan wanted to know the answer to her. She didn't have time to talk to her, so she directly ended the two people's quarrel. If you want to play, you have to be able to play. The outside world is different from home. If you lose, you can't regret it. If you cry, no one will bother with you. And let me give you a piece of advice. If you don't do it, you won't die. The blue-clothed woman's behavior in the third round of the transaction was obviously a typical example of a person who wanted to use a hook without bait to play with the fish in the sea, but was dragged into the sea and got wet. Chu Qingyan didn't know whether she would listen to her or not. Anyway, she had said so much. Take care of yourselves. Chu Qingyan didn't look at her. She pulled Higashio Motetsu's sleeve and walked quickly to the exit. What are you waiting for? It's over. Higashio Motetsu knew that she was anxious, but he still felt a little embarrassed after being yelled at by her. Don't pull me. I can walk by myself. Chu Qingyin couldn't help but shake her head and let go. This young master was usually more precious than gold. He walked like a model in a fashion show. She really didn't want to rush him. The woman in blue tugged at her sleeves as she watched the two of them leave. Her eyes were burning with anger. I, Jiang Yutong, swear that if we meet again one day, I'll make you regret what you did today. When the two of them left the auction hall, Chu Qingyin suddenly slapped her head, as if she had suddenly thought of something. With that unruly girl messing around, I forgot about the important matter. What's wrong? Higashio Motetsu was puzzled by her action at this time. I was planning to make friends with by Xiao after the auction. I've asked him twice before, and I don't know if he'll care. What if he's not happy and gives me a false answer? Besides, you know how many people's secrets he has in his hands. It's better to have one more friend. What if we can help each other in the future? Chu Qingyin crossed her shoulders and was a little distressed. Higashio Motetsu raised his hand and knocked her head. He shook his head and laughed. Your worry is unnecessary. Bai Xiaosheng is as famous as his trustworthiness. You can rest assured. Moreover, he has a lot of eccentricities. You may not be able to talk to him. It's better to avoid trouble. Don't worry about it. Then let's leave it at that for now. Anyway, it was useless to say anything now. What was missed. Chu Qingyin didn't think about it anymore. She just wanted to quickly go to her room to get her things. But sometimes, common sense couldn't be used to infer. Bai Xiaosheng's eccentricities were as famous as his trustworthiness. Therefore, Chu Qingyin's worry was not unnecessary. When she returned to her room, Chu Qingyin took off her mask. She really wasn't used to talking with a mask on. It was too tiring. Higashio Motetsu also took off his mask and put his cowherd mask next to Chu Qingyin's Weaver Girl mask. He joked, "Don't say that the masks randomly distributed by Lan Zhuang are quite compatible." Chu Qingyin wasn't thinking about it. She casually said, "Don't you know that the cowherd and Weaver Girl are in a dilemma when they meet? In the end, the cowherd and his cow live together, right? Can't you say something nicer?" Higashio Motetsu was amused by her. Something nicer? Could it be that telling the truth isn't popular anymore? Well then, I hope you find your Weaver Girl soon. Chu Qingyin made a face at him. This little girl, her mouth was really sharp. Higashio Motetsu choked on Chu Qingyin's words. His usual glib tongue was useless at this time. Forget it. He didn't want to live together with a cow. Just thinking about it was scary. At this time, the things that Chu Qingyin had been thinking about arrived. The black-clothed man from Lan Zhuang placed 2 boxes in Chu Qingyin's hands and said that someone would send them back in the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn. Then he bowed and left. Check it first. If there are any problems, you can ask Lan Zhuang immediately. Higashio Motetsu didn't like her doing so much for Xiao Su, but he still reminded her. Chu Qingyin hugged the 2 boxes in her hands, grinning from ear to ear. After hearing his words, she nodded and said as she opened the boxes, "So Lan Zhuang left the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn to check our things. How thoughtful." When she opened the first box, it just so happened to contain Bai Xiaosheng's answer. She impatiently picked it up and opened the paper. When she saw the answer inside, Chu Qingyin's smile froze. I really was tricked by Bai Xiaosheng. Chapter 439. Although Higashio Motetsu didn't like Xiao Su, he couldn't help but want to see where the rumored ice crystal flower was. But as soon as he got closer, he heard the little girl gnashing her teeth, which made him even more curious. For elegant words were written on the white paper. Imperial Palace of Jiang Kingdom. Imperial Palace of Jiang Kingdom? It's quite normal. Didn't I help you determine the location? Higashio Motetsu asked in confusion. Where did this trap come from? Chu Qingyin angrily slapped the paper on the table and said, "The Imperial Palace of Jiang Kingdom is so big. Who knows where it is? Don't we have to search the whole place? Didn't you say that Bai Xiaosheng could pinpoint the exact location? He even knew which pair of shoes a certain boss hid his secret stash of money in his room. Why was he treated differently when it came to me? He must have a grudge against me." Higashio Motetsu touched his nose. There was indeed such a thing. Could it be that by Xiao really didn't want to reveal it intentionally so that he could see the little girl scratching her ears and cheeks? At this time, Bai Xiaosheng, who had returned to his room, suddenly sneezed. He frowned, and a subordinate beside him said at the right time, "Master, Madam said that people usually sneeze suddenly because they did something wrong. You dare to ridicule me?" Bai Xiaosheng glanced at him. "I don't dare." The subordinate held back his laughter and lowered his head. Bai Xiaosheng slowly closed his eyes and planned to rest. But because of the subordinate's words, he muttered in his heart, "Who on earth dared to speak ill of him behind his back?" But he thought of the answer he left for the little girl. Imperial Palace of Jiang Kingdom. That was not his usual style of doing things. If it were any other time, of course, he would write down the location to a specific corner. But this time he was unwilling. Since the little girl could come up with a question and an item to stump him, then he would make things difficult for her. Anyway, he didn't violate the rules. Who knew if the Emperor of Jiang Kingdom would change the location on a whim in the future? In order to ensure the rigor of his answer, he simply opened up the scope. If his wife knew what he was thinking, she would probably despise him. Wasn't it because he was unwilling to accept his loss? He couldn't show it because of his face, so he could only make things difficult for others. Ahem. When you go back, don't tell Madam about the answer I wrote for that little girl. If Madam finds out about this, you'll be punished. Bai Xiaosheng opened one eye and glanced at Ai. Ai suppressed his laughter and agreed. Master was worried that Madam would lose face if she knew. He understood. Master, the boss of the White Sparrow restaurant said that she wouldn't exchange it for the Snow Heart lipstick even if she was rich. Ai recalled what had just happened and hurriedly reported. I expected it. She's obsessed with makeup. Forget it. Bai Xiaosheng leaned against the table, holding his cheek with his thumb and index finger. His thin lips curved into an intoxicating smile. Fortunately, I still have a backup plan. Master, are you referring to the letter you left for the little girl? I asked. That's right. Bai Xiaosheng nodded. But didn't Master say that you don't want to have anything to do with that little girl? After all, he had lost twice in a row, so Ai spoke out of turn. Bai Xiaosheng's mouth twitched. Don't you know that there are some things you should and shouldn't say? With your personality, if you were to walk around the palace, you probably wouldn't last more than a joss stick's worth of time. Knowing that he had spoken the truth again, he immediately shut his mouth. Ever since he met Madam, Master's words were becoming more and more like Madam's. But for Madam, it wasn't strange at all that Master would take the initiative to leave a letter for someone. Ai sighed. Ever since he met Madam, Master was becoming more and more like a virtuous husband. At this time, Chu Qingyan, who could only accept her bad luck, was about to look at the other box when she was attracted by Higashio Motetsu's words of surprise. There's another piece of paper here, Higashio Motetsu said as he picked up the piece of paper. Chu Qingyan immediately leaned over to take a look. The handwriting was the same as the previous one. It said, "Find the all-knowing sect for some matters." Find the all-knowing sect for some matters? Chu Qingyan read this sentence, and her mind was filled with questions. Is this how the all-knowing sect advertises? It was so simple, just like a modern business card. But this was too simple. She didn't believe that the all-knowing sect would be so stingy as to send someone away with a piece of white paper. No, Bai Xiaosheng isn't that bored. Higashio Motetsu laughed and shook his head. Then why did he write this nonsense? If he had the time, he might as well write down the exact location of the ice crystal flower for me. Chu Qingyan was still complaining about his stinginess. Higashio Motetsu chuckled again. Little girl, he's throwing you an olive branch. It means that he wants to be friends with you. Chu Qingyan blinked. You're not joking, right? Higashio Motetsu handed the paper to her and said, Bai Xiaosheng hates trouble the most. Since he's willing to write an extra sentence for you, it means that he appreciates you and wants to be friends with you. If you have any problems, you can go find the all-knowing sect. He'll help you. Of course, there's a price for helping. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up. Could it be that I have something he wants? Otherwise, why would he want me to go find the all-knowing sect? Maybe. Higashio Motetsu rubbed his chin. He didn't write down the location of the ice crystal flower so clearly. Maybe he wants you to ask him for help. After all, the things you took out are things that he doesn't know about. In order to avoid being troubled by you in the future, he probably wants to know both himself and his enemy. Chu Qingyan felt that this analysis was somewhat reasonable, so she put away the paper and said with a smile, "Keep this. When the time comes, I'll bring it to the all-knowing sect to find him." In any case, she still had a lot of those strange things that the ancient people had. She wasn't afraid that Bai Xiaoxing wouldn't tell her the exact location of the ice crystal flower and the whereabouts of the love grass. After saying that, Chu Qingyan opened another box. Inside was the heartless bead that she had exchanged for with the snow heart lipstick. She took out the heartless bead and placed it in her palm. It actually felt a little warm. Could it be that this was the legendary warm in winter and cool in summer? She really didn't know if Big Ice Cube would be pleasantly surprised when he received her gift. Higashio Motetsu snatched the bead from her hand, ignoring her rolling her eyes. He played with it in his hand. "Little girl, this highness has helped you so much. How about this bead treated as a reward for this highness?" Chu Qingyan glanced at him. "When did you become so thick-skinned?" Higashio Motetsu chuckled. "You only found out now? It's not too late." Chu Qingyan didn't want to pay attention to him. While he wasn't paying attention, she snatched the heartless bead back and put it back in a box. She then commented on his actions just now. "Daunting. Can you be a little more childish?" Higashio Motetsu shrugged. He was just playing around. If he was serious with her ability, how could she take the heartless bead back from him so easily? Chapter 440. The two of them stayed in the room for the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. The black-clothed man from Lawn Manor appeared again. He also took out a ribbon, but this time it was to send them back. When they came, they were already used to it. Now that they were going back, they were familiar with it. Chu Qingyan consciously covered her eyes. She thought that this kind of underground Lawn Manor was really good. In the future, if she had the chance, she would come here often. Maybe there would be some unexpected surprises. After another round of getting on and off the carriage, they finally stopped. When Chu Qingyan removed the ribbon, she found that they were now back at the East Dragon Pavilion. When she turned around, the carriage and the people from Lawn Manor had disappeared. They came and went without a trace. It was really mysterious. Chu Qingyan tightened the bag on her back. She felt that she had gained a lot, but she thought of Higashio Motetsu, who had lost the auction. Seeing that it was still early, she asked, "Is it really okay that we didn't get the ginseng fruit? What can it be?" "The old man did tell me, but this young master didn't promise that he would get it." In fact, for Higashio Motetsu, he didn't care about the ginseng fruit at all. If he didn't know what the old man wanted to do with it, he probably would have tried his best to buy it for him. Unfortunately, after he found out, he didn't want to work for others. Chu Qingyan had nothing to say. She didn't comment on this matter anymore. "Let's walk back. I think the sun will set when we reach the agreed place." The sky in winter darkened quickly. She was afraid that the sun would set in another 2 hours. Higashio Motetsu answered casually, as if he was thinking about something. Chu Qingyan saw that he was unusually silent, so she didn't ask anything more. When Chu Qingyan was about to walk back, several sharp sounds pierced through the air. In Lawn Manor, in a luxurious and exquisite room, a figure stroked a wine cup and smiled. "You said that the little girl used that thing to exchange for the heartless bead?" "Yes, master. The owner of White Sparrow House seems to treasure it very much." The young girl, standing at the side, replied. Her voice was very familiar. Wasn't this the woman wearing the jade mask who was hosting on the stage at that time? There was also a young man standing beside her. Judging from his figure, he was similar to the man in the golden mask. "That's because I haven't seen it before. I've used it a lot in the past." Her red lips parted slightly, and her voice was somewhat emotional. She had not expected to see something from the modern era today. She had been in the ancient era for so many years, but when she heard things related to the past, she could not help but feel sad. Master is experienced and knowledgeable. Otherwise, how could he have established Lawn Manor by himself? The young man was not as mature as he was on the stage. When he spoke in private, he was a little cute. "Shangguang, you're being naughty again." The woman nestled on the couch, glanced at him, and lazily leaned half of her body on the small table. She was wearing an indigo light muslin dress with white jasmine flowers embroidered on the cuffs. It was simple but exquisite. There was a pair of jade earrings by her ears, fresh and beautiful. Her fine black hair was tied up high with pearls and jade ribbons. At the end of her hair hung 2 strings of sapphire blue beads. There was a lock of long hair hanging down her cheeks. She was fresh and refined with a touch of a young girl's playfulness. She had willow eyebrows and big eyes. In the blink of an eye, light flowed, and she was seductively beautiful. She was clearly a young girl who was not even 18, but her eyes were filled with a calmness that did not match her age. She was the low-key founder of Lawn Manor, Sima Jun. Both the black and white people had to respect her. "Master, you don't have to pay attention to Shangwang." This subordinate also heard that the little girl's question stumped the all-knowing man in Jianghu. The young girl smiled. "A servant. Oh, Tanning, tell me about it." Sima Guang had nothing to do, so he listened to pass the time. The young girl was Tanning. When she heard her master speak, she told him about the chicken or the egg question, as well as the matter of the magnifying glass. Sima Jun originally wanted to say that although they were all part of the transmigrating army, they all had their own transmigrating missions, so they should not interfere with each other. However, when she heard the young girl's words, she could not help but raise her eyebrows. It seems that this little girl is quite interesting. Even that fellow all-knowing man in Jianghu could not help but want to get acquainted with her. This subordinate feels that all-knowing man in Jianghu's goal should be to obtain the item in the little girl's hands. After all-knowing man in Jianghu's love for his wife is not a rumor. Shangwang could not help but say. Sima Jun pursed her lips and smiled. "Awan has found a good husband. Miss Wan, an all-knowing man in Jianghu's love, is only hurting us single dogs." Shangwang pretended to be in pain. Tanning glared at him. "Go find one yourself." Sima Jun ignored the two's bickering. She thought for a moment and said, "Do you know the identity of that little girl?" "I did not find out. The person who brought her here is the young master of the Moon Palace sect, Higashio Motetsu." Shangwang stopped joking and replied seriously. "The Moon Palace sect?" Sima Jun muttered. "All these years, the Moon Palace sect has rarely appeared in Jianghu. I did not expect their young master to come to the Blue Manor today." Master is right. The Moon Palace sect has been quiet for many years and usually only accepts assassination missions. However, what is strange is that some time ago, the Moon Palace sect issued a kill order and sent out a large number of disciples to assassinate the King of England of Sichuan Kingdom, Xiao Su. I do not know who paid a large sum of money to buy Xiao Su's life. However, according to our investigation, the real person who injured Xiao Su was someone else. Now, Xiao Su's whereabouts are unknown and Sichuan Kingdom is currently searching for him. Tanning said with a puzzled expression. The imperial family is full of intrigue and intrigue. There's no need to pay too much attention to it. It's almost the end of the year. After this exchange meeting, just wait until spring next year. Treat it as a holiday for all of you. However, don't forget to search for those rare treasures and strange people. Also, investigate the identity of that young lady. It's not easy to meet such an interesting person. I haven't played for a long time. Treat it as a chance to loosen my muscles. Sima Jun played with the wine cup and laughed. "Yes," Shang Guang replied. At this moment, Tanning spoke. "Master, the subordinate who sent Higashio Motetsu back reported that there was an ambush at the place they were sent back. There were many people, and their martial arts were not weak. Who ambushed them?" Sima Jun raised his eyebrows. "It should be the relatives of those who were assassinated by the Moon Palace sect. They want revenge. After all these years, the Moon Palace sect hands are stained with blood." Tanning guessed. It's not easy to meet someone fun. If she gets implicated, it would be a pity. Sima Jun shook his head and sighed. "Then should we send people to help?" Shan Guang saw that his master was so concerned about the young lady and could not help but ask. Sima Jun waved his hand. "No need. If she's still alive, let me know." She did not believe that someone who could join the transmigrating army did not have some ability. If she died because of this small ambush, It could only prove that the young lady was just cannon fodder. Yes, Shan Guang and Tanning replied. Chapter 441. The sound of swords slicing through the air startled Chu Qingyan, and she instinctively retreated. Higashio Motetsu, who was beside her, reacted faster than her. He quickly stepped forward, reached out, and grabbed the attacker's wrist. With a twist of his hand, the attacker's wrist was broken, and the sword fell to the ground. He lifted his leg and kicked the attacker, sending him flying several zhang away. Chu Qingyan could vaguely hear the crisp sound of the attacker's bones breaking. This was the first time she had seen him in action. Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. Whether in terms of reaction or attack, he was several times stronger than her. He was also more ruthless than her. She hadn't exclaimed for long when another person rushed forward, shouting, "Little brat Dong Ting, give me your life. Stay here." Higashio Motetsu saw the people who had leapt out in an instant. He didn't even turn his head as he smiled. Clearly, he was speaking to Chu Qingyan. As soon as he spoke, he stepped on the sword hilt left behind by the attacker. Then, with a hook, the sword fell into his hand. The tip of the sword was pointed at the people who were flying towards him. He raised his phoenix eyes, and a cold light swirled in his eyes. He snorted disdainfully. "If you want to die, this young master will accompany you." As soon as he finished speaking, he swept through the encirclement like a whirlwind. Everything happened too quickly. By the time Chu Qingyan regained her senses, there were already several people lying at her feet, covered in blood. Who were these people? Why did they suddenly attack Higashio Motetsu? What made Chu Qingyan feel strange was that these people were all dressed in casual clothes, and their faces were not covered. They were openly revealing their true faces to assassinate Jiang Yi. Weren't they worried that others would seek revenge on them? At this time, Chu Qingyan heard someone say, "Little brat Dong Ting, your father killed my brother. This time, we definitely won't let you go." Another person said, "I, Yin Nanzi, will avenge my wife." Then another person said, "Your moon palace annihilated my Wu family. These 5 lives I Wu Hai will pay with blood today. And me, you people from the moon palace killed my son and daughter-in-law. You didn't even spare a 3-year-old child. This blood feud is absolutely irreconcilable. I, Fei Yang Shiji, will seek justice for those who died in vain." Chu Qingyan sucked in a breath of cold air. Who exactly was Higashio Motetsu? How did his father end up with so many blood debts? And what was the Moon Palace sect? She was full of questions, but now was not the time to care about these things. Chu Qingyan counted. There were at least a dozen people besieging Higashio Motetsu, and there were more than a dozen people waiting for an opportunity to join in. These people were different from the assassins she had encountered in the past because they did not look like well-trained assassins, but a group of scattered avengers. She could tell from the different weapons they used, the different martial arts moves, and the different clothes they wore. However, such a team was much more lethal than a well-trained assassin. This was because they could catch the enemy off guard and catch them off guard, making it impossible for them to guard against them. If it was the newly transmigrated Chu Qingyan, she would not be able to tell whether these people's martial arts were strong or not. She would only see the flashes of light and the shadows of swords, dazzling her eyes. However, ever since she started practicing martial arts, these people's movements seemed to have been slowed down. They were no longer as dazzling as before. I didn't expect that you self-proclaimed righteous people would engage in such a shady business of assassination. What a hypocrite. Higashio Motetsu's sword danced like a dragon, not forgetting to strike a blow at them. His smile was somewhat mocking. Higashio Motetsu's words succeeded in igniting the flames of the crowd. "Hey, to deal with scum like you, we should fight poison with poison. You people from the Moon Palace sect have no right to criticize us. That's right, we only want revenge, and let your father have a taste of the pain of losing his own son. Little brat Dong Ting, if you have anything to say, save it for the underworld." They spoke one after another, but their moves did not lessen. Instead, each of their moves was swift and fierce, and they were all killing moves. Higashio Motetsu's sword flashed like a flower, forcing a few people to retreat. He chuckled and said, "Looks like the righteous sects are just SOSO." Everyone looked at each other, not giving any leeway. Chu Qingyin crossed her arms as she watched Higashio Motetsu fight. She originally wanted to go down and help, but when she saw that he was handling the situation with ease and even teased his opponents from time to time, making them anxious, she gave up on the idea. Although Higashio Motetsu was full of sarcasm, he was actually doing this to disturb the mood of these people. When they were impatient when they attacked, it would be easier for them to reveal their flaws. Although these people had come to besiege Higashio Motetsu with the slogan of revenge, they were divided into several groups. When a few people were tired, they would retreat and replace them with others. This practice made Chu Qingyin despise them. No matter how high Higashio Motetsu's martial arts were, he could not withstand so many consecutive battles. When one's energy was exhausted, one's reaction speed could not keep up with the brain. At this time, Higashio Motetsu did not show any signs of fatigue, but Chu Qingyin was a little worried. Although she did not know the cause of the matter, it was obviously not fair to have so many of them against one. If it was really the righteous sect that Higashio Motetsu said, she would feel ashamed. Although Higashio Motetsu's mouth was a little annoying, after so many interactions, she could feel that he was not a bad person. Even if he was scheming, he was not unkind to her. Chu Qingyin decided not to sit still and wait for death. She was ready to help. Who knew if these people would let her go later? When the crowd saw that Higashio Motetsu had gone through such a long battle and injured many of them, but they could not hurt him at all, they were furious. At this time, someone pointed at Chu Qingyin's position and shouted, "Brother Su." That person appeared with Higashio Motetsu. I guess they are in the same group. Kill him. The people who were waiting for the battle at the side looked in the direction of his finger. When they saw that it was only a young boy who was about 10 years old, holding a big knife, he immediately jumped up and rubbed his hands. "Brother Su, you don't need to take care of this young boy. Why don't you leave him to me? I'll kill him cleanly with a knife." "No, he's still a child. Maybe he's innocent. Besides, our target is Higashio Motetsu. It has nothing to do with others." A square-faced man immediately stopped them. "Innocent? Those who are with that brat must be jackals of the same tribe. Our wives and children who were killed are also innocent. Why don't we see the Moon Palace sect showing mercy?" Another person with a long spear also stood up and shouted for the man with the big knife to chop off Chu Qingyin's head. "You don't have to care. Leave this brat's life to me. I'll take care of him." The man with the big knife waved his hand at the square-faced man and spat. Then, he walked towards Chu Qingyin with the big knife. When the square-faced man heard this, he knew that he could not win against these people. He retreated to the side and looked at Chu Qingyin with pity. It was such a pity for such a beautiful young boy. Chapter 442. Their conversation had also reached Chu Qingyin and Higashio Motetsu's ears. Higashio Motetsu's expression turned cold, and the smile on his face disappeared. He said mockingly, "The person you're looking for is this young master. It has nothing to do with her. Don't tell me that people like you who talk so much about morality and benevolence won't even let a child off. Your Moon Palace is full of evil. Why do you have to talk about morality and benevolence with us? Are you even worthy?" A burly man spat, his eyes filled with hatred. Higashio Motetsu ignored him and wanted to leave to protect Chu Qingyin. Unfortunately, they had discovered him, and he couldn't leave. He could only turn around and say to Chu Qingyin, "Hurry up and leave." Chu Qingyin looked at the man who was already walking towards her with a murderous aura. Could she still leave now? She might as well fight with her back to the river. "Child, don't blame us for being vicious. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being together with this evil person. In the future, you'll reincarnate into a good family. Open your eyes wide and don't be blind to people." After saying these high-sounding words, the burly man with the scar on his face raised his saber and slashed at Chu Qingyin. Perhaps because he didn't think much of Chu Qingyin, the burly man didn't see the mocking smile on her face. "I think what?" When the burly man heard her speak, he subconsciously paused. You're the one who should open your eyes wide." Her eyes instantly turned cold. As soon as she said this, the burly man didn't even have time to react. His abdomen was already severely injured. After letting out a scream, he couldn't even hold the saber in his hand firmly and fell to the ground. They thought that the burly man would be back soon, so they didn't pay much attention to him. They didn't expect to hear such a miserable scream. Everyone looked over and saw the burly man lying on the ground, his shoulders trembling. For some reason, his posture was very strange. Meanwhile, the youth who should have been bleeding profusely was standing there with an innocent look on his face. Even Higashio Motetsu didn't know what was going on. Everyone stopped. At this moment, the innocent-looking Chu Qingyan suddenly stepped forward and kicked the scar-faced man's shoulder. No one knew what he was trying to do. This young man was too strange. His smile was so innocent that it was frightening. At this moment, Chu Qingyan suddenly exerted her strength and kicked the burly man away. That burly man was like a snowball as he rolled on the ground before coming to a stop. Everyone was stunned. That burly man was at least 160 to 70 kilograms. How could he be kicked away so easily by this young man? Her leg strength. Today's results. The results. Hers too, the training. She's trainings. Today was had made S's with. Two. Him. His. She. Sufferance to. Was. Two. B's. Twos is he's his face. He's to him. B. Everyone looked at him. They knew where his injury was. It was obvious that this youth's attack was not light. Of course it wasn't light. One kick was enough to send a person flying. That place was even more fragile. Even if Chu Qingyan only used 30% of her strength, it was enough to make him unable to do it. Chu Qingyan slowly walked out. Looking at the crowd, her eyes flashed coldly. Are you people from a righteous sect? Don't do to others what you don't want done to you. You can even lay your hands on a weak child. It's obvious that you people aren't noble. When she said the words weak child, Higashio Motetsu laughed unkindly. But then he received a glare from Chu Qingyan. He immediately looked away. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to hold back his laughter. If it were an ordinary child, we wouldn't hurt him. But you're with Higashio Motetsu. You're definitely in the same boat. Think about it. How could an innocent child have the strength of your leg? The man with the spear said sarcastically. Hee, if it were an innocent child, he would have been cut down. How would he have the chance to stand here and talk to you? Chu Qingyan sneered. Dissatisfied with Chu Qingyan's rude words, the people at the side said, don't talk nonsense with him. Those who follow Higashio Motetsu deserve to die. After saying that, the man raised his sword and stabbed at Chu Qingyan. Higashio Motetsu saw this and wanted to save her. The people surrounding him immediately rushed up. The few of them were tangled up again. Higashio Motetsu couldn't do anything. He could only say to Chu Qingyan, find a chance to leave. Chu Qingyan knew that he wanted her to leave first. With her qinggong, it wouldn't be difficult to escape. But seeing so many people besieging him, how could she be at ease leaving him alone? The tip of the sword was already close. Chu Qingyan was unarmed. The other party obviously saw this and underestimated her. Chu Qingyan's eyes revealed panic. She pretended to be afraid. That person was very pleased with this and revealed a trace of killing intent. Go die. When his voice fell, the tip of the sword was already an inch away from her neck. Chu Qingyan curled her lips. Her right foot moved, and her entire body moved down. Her body nimbly slipped under his sword, and in the blink of an eye, she was standing beside that person. She raised her hand and grabbed his wrist. When he didn't expect this, she knocked away his weapon. Then her palm landed on his chest, and finally she threw him over her shoulder. Her movements were like moving clouds and flowing water. Everyone only felt that in the blink of an eye, their companion had already fallen to the ground and couldn't get up for a long time. Chu Qingyan was from Xiao Lai Chi. There weren't many beautiful moves. What she pursued was to hit the target in one strike. It was like hitting the weak spot of snake. The place she hit was the most important part of the person's body. So her first two moves were enough to make that person suffer. Higashio Motetsu's thoughts were on her just now, and he was still worried. But seeing her make a move, he heaved a sigh of relief and focused on the opponent in front of him. This last grew up so quickly. Her moves were fast and ruthless. Seems like it was all thanks to Xiao Su. Only Xiao Lai Chi's training method could allow a person to grow so quickly. A strange feeling flashed past his heart, but it quickly disappeared. Chu Qingyin's move caused everyone to be alert. The few people who were watching immediately held onto their weapons and flew towards Chu Qingyin. Brother Xiao, Brother Li, we are here to take revenge for you. The people who came were aggressive and filled with righteous indignation. Chu Qingyin sneered before making a move. She looked around and then took 2 steps forward. She picked up that person's sword and weighed it in her hand. It was not as good as the sword that Big Ice Cube had prepared for her. The quality was also much lighter. She could tell that the quality of the sword was not good and it wasn't easy to use. But she didn't have any weapons on her, so she didn't have to be picky. She had been practicing her swordsmanship recently and had yet to test the results. She didn't know what level her martial arts had reached. Now was a good chance to practice. She straightened her back and held onto her sword. Those people were already in front of her. Chapter 443. When everyone saw that she was holding a sword, they did not dare to be careless. The 3 of them surrounded her and attacked at the same time. They were aimed at her neck, chest, and lower abdomen. Chu Qingyin snorted. They were all killing moves. She flew back, avoiding the 3 people. The 3 people's moves missed, so they chased after her. Chu Qingyin only took a few steps back before flying into the air. She waved her sword at one of the weaker men. The sword chi was overwhelming. He raised his sword to defend, but he felt a pain in his hand. His weapon was shaken off. Chu Qingyin took the opportunity to kick him over. The other 2 were shocked. One of them was injured in one move. The 2 of them looked at each other and immediately went forward. Chu Qingyin was pleasantly surprised. She did not expect that she would easily win against her opponent by only using the 3rd move of the Raging Flame Sword. At first, she thought that since the Raging Flame Sword had so few moves, she would definitely use them all at once. Only now did she know its power. Chu Qingyin sighed in her heart. In fact, the Raging Flame Sword was a sword technique created by Xiao Su. He combined what he had learned from his experience in the outside world into 12 moves. Each move had its own use. As long as one learned the essence, it would not be a problem to deal with the people in front of her. Chu Qingyin was personally taught by Turin and Xiao Su himself. Even if she did not learn the essence of the Raging Flame Sword, she had at least learned 90%. However, Chu Qingyin was not complacent. She could see that those who were strong in martial arts were going to deal with Higashio Motetsu. Those who were not strong in martial arts turned to deal with her. The remaining 2 people, one on the left and one on the right, went towards Chu Qingyin. Chu Qingyin knew that their martial arts were not weak, so she did not dare to be careless. She tightened her bag and let go of herself to fight with the 2 of them. Her Raging Flame Sword was not skilled enough. She wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to familiarize herself with the 12 moves and merge them together. She would not just follow the script. Therefore, actual combat was very important. You had to use what you had learned to adapt to the situation when your opponent made a move, because no one would cooperate with you and play with you from the 1st move to the 12th move. Every time they were about to be defeated, the young man would suddenly stop, giving them time to catch their breath. Although they were suspicious, the other party's attacks were getting faster and faster, fiercer and fiercer. They simply couldn't resist at all. In the end, they looked at Chu Qingyin, panting heavily. Are you playing with us? If you want, just give me a quick death. Chu Qingyin did not pay attention to them. Instead, she lowered her head and looked at her own hands. Her heart was filled with joy. So it really was true that true knowledge came from practice. Just now, she was already able to use the Raging Flame Sword freely. Seeing that the youth was not paying attention to them and was staring blankly at her hand, the 2 men looked at each other and gave each other a look. Then, they took small and light steps towards her. Chu Qingyin keenly felt the changes in the air. She frowned. When the other party thought that she had caught them off guard, she suddenly made a move. She used a Raging Flame 8 style that she was most familiar with. The two men's full-strength attack could not compare to Chu Qingyin's move. They fell into the dust. One of them covered his chest and fiercely said to Chu Qingyin, "You're good. If you want to kill me or cut me, do as you please." Chu Qingyin withdrew her sword and looked at him strangely. "We have no enmity. Why should I take your life?" That person was speechless. At this time, the Jianghu people surrounding Higashio Motetsu found that their three companions had been defeated so quickly. They were surprised. Who was this young man? How come they had never seen him before? The people of Jianghu rarely interacted with the people of the imperial court, much less the fierce cavalry. Thus, they could not tell where Chu Qingyin's moves came from. They only felt that they were filled with the cold, killing intent of a hunting battlefield. Higashio Motetsu withdrew his gaze from Chu Qingyin and sighed in his heart. This little girl was really smart. She actually used these people as a test. He felt that her sword moves were becoming more and more familiar. Chu Qingyin did not continue to tangle with the two men. Instead, she raised her sword and quickly walked towards Higashio Motetsu. With so many people fighting to the death, even if Higashio Motetsu's martial arts were high, he would not be able to withstand so many people taking turns to fight. Not only were their martial arts different, their weapons were also different. It was even more difficult to deal with them. Higashio Motetsu did not expect her to come back. After he killed one person, he turned to Chu Qingyin, who had joined the battle, and said, "You leave first. It's not safe here." "No, I haven't had enough fun yet." Chu Qingyin said this, but her heart was filled with energy. She could not leave him here alone to fight against these people. Higashio Motetsu watched her fight a bloody battle. Although the opponent's martial arts were higher than hers, he did not see any fear on her face. His heart did not know why, but a warm current slowly flowed through his body. This feeling was not like blood boiling, nor was it like excitement or joy. It was like someone was using a willow branch to gently stroke his face. It was itchy, numb, but very comfortable. Although his heart was moved by her actions, he would not allow her to be injured. "You are not their opponent. Quickly leave here. You will only drag this young master down if you stay." When Chu Qingyin heard this, she pulled her sword back and glared at him. "You just need to take care of yourself. Don't worry about me. Who knows, you might drag me down." Seeing her insistence, Higashio Motetsu did not say anything else. He fought back with all his strength. Although these people's martial arts were not as high as his, they had the advantage of numbers and tacit cooperation. This was why he wasted so much time and energy. At this time, Chu Qingyin was fighting against these people whose martial arts were higher than hers. Because of her lack of experience, she was constantly being beaten. However, actual combat was for the sake of gaining experience. Moreover, she was smart in this aspect. She had just turned the 12 techniques of Raging Flames into her own, and this was the perfect time for her to use them. Chu Qingyin finally understood what it meant to be strong when you meet strong opponents. She thought that if she returned safely this time, she must have a good fight with Turin and the others. Actual combat was the only way to improve her skills. And just as Chu Qingyin was getting more and more excited, Higashio Motetsu had already figured out their routines and flaws through the fight just now. At this time, he hit one person accurately, and soon, more and more people fell down. Those Jianghu people did not expect that although these two people were young, their martial arts and brains were not bad. Seeing that their own people were getting fewer and fewer, and that the situation was getting more and more obvious, they panicked. "Retreat." The one with the higher prestige among the crowd made a prompt decision and ordered. The people who were fighting stopped one after another, supporting their injured companions on the ground and retreating. One person shouted with a stern expression, "Revenge is a dish best served cold." "Higashio Motetsu, just you wait." After saying that, he quickly retreated, leaving behind a mess on the ground. Higashio Motetsu smiled and did not care much. He planned to turn around and look for the little girl. He seemed to have seen her injured just now. But as soon as he turned around, a sharp sword was aimed at his throat. "Higashio Motetsu, who are you? What is your relationship with the Moon Palace sect?" He stood in the same spot, his phoenix eyes reflecting her serious expression. Chapter 444. Chu Qingyan stared at him coldly, refusing to budge an inch. Little girl, this young master has treated you well, so why are you pointing your sword at me? Higashio Motetsu looked at her with a smile, as if he didn't care about the sword at his neck at all. She chuckled at his words. Dong Ting, you have indeed treated me well, but these are two separate matters. Tell me honestly, who are you, and what is your relationship with the Moon Palace sect? Otherwise, why would they target you? When she heard the words Moon Palace sect, she felt that they were somewhat familiar, but she didn't immediately recall where she had heard them. However, when they were fighting, she suddenly remembered where she had heard them. In Sichuan, on that rainy night, the people of the Moon Palace sect had surrounded and killed the big ice cube. If Higashio Motetsu was a member of the Moon Palace sect, then hadn't he been lying to her all this time? Higashio Motetsu saw her serious expression and suppressed anger between her brows. He guessed that she had already thought of the Moon Palace sect. No, he had guessed it from the moment she had pointed her sword at his throat. He didn't want to let the little girl know his identity so soon. Otherwise, the rest of his journey would be difficult. Little girl, I am Higashio Motetsu, and Higashio Motetsu is me. He smiled slightly, his phoenix eyes slightly raised, revealing a seductive look. But the other party didn't fall for this trick. She pushed her sword forward a bit and stared at him without saying a word. Higashio Motetsu couldn't help but sigh when he saw this. Little girl, I'll tell you the truth. Speak, don't try to play any tricks. Chu Qingyan harumphed. Higashio Motetsu spread his hands, indicating that he would cooperate. Then he said, Higashio Motetsu is my real name, and I will never change my name. My father is indeed a member of the Moon Palace sect, so don't be so agitated, little girl. Be careful not to cut my skin. It'll be ugly if you leave a scar. He took a step back, avoiding Chu Qingyan's sword. Then he continued, My father used to be a member of the Moon Palace sect, but he isn't anymore, and I'm even less of one. How do you explain those people? Chu Qingyan looked at him coldly. Fabricate, and continue fabricating. My father used to be a member of the Moon Palace sect. Do you still remember the woman who tried to assassinate Xiao Su? She was a protector of the Suicide Squad, and there was another assassination squad in the Moon Palace sect called the Suicide Squad. Coincidentally, my father was a protector of the Suicide Squad. However, ever since my father married my mother, he washed his hands of gold and has been away from the Moon Palace sect for many years. He was tired of the days of bloodshed and slaughter, and has now left the Jianghu. However, the massacre that he caused back then was an established fact, and there are many people who want to take revenge on him. As his son, of course I have to pay for my father's debts. Higashio Motetsu finished speaking, his expression sorrowful. A beautiful man in distress. The picture was very moving. However, Chu Qingyan was not moved by the beauty in front of her. She asked, Just now, someone said that you killed his wife a few days ago. How do you explain that? Higashio Motetsu immediately cried out, It's not our fault. It's just that they put the blame on my father for the latest sin committed by the Moon Palace sect. Moreover, as long as it's a member of the Moon Palace sect, they will deal with him in the name of revenge. Therefore, my father and I are just forced to take the blame. In addition to the old grudges, those who didn't know the truth were instigated by my father's former enemies, and that's why they attacked us together today. Although Chu Qingyan was a little shaken, she still didn't believe it. This man was very eloquent, and she didn't want to be fooled by him. I don't believe it. What's your purpose for following us all the way? I don't believe it's such a coincidence that we will meet in the Jiang Kingdom. Seeing that Chu Qingyan's eyebrows were relaxed, but she still held the hilt of her sword tightly and pointed it at him, Higashio Motetsu smiled and continued, Little girl, I did come to the Jiang Kingdom for something. It's for the ginseng fruit. If you still don't believe me, then think about it. When so many people besieged Xiao Su, who tipped you off? Who sent you? Who had a high fever to the door of the clinic? Who brought you to the Blue Manor to find the whereabouts of the ice crystal flower and the love grass? If I really have a purpose for following you, Why did I help you again and again? Wouldn't it be better to take the opportunity to catch you? Why do I have to go through so much trouble? As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Qingyan moved her sword away a little. What Higashio Motetsu said was indeed true, but it was also what she couldn't figure out. If he really had a purpose, why didn't he take action after so many opportunities? Seeing that his words were effective, Higashio Motetsu continued, "Little girl, if you don't believe me, you can ask someone to investigate the matter of the guardians of the killing group betraying the Moon Palace. Then you can confirm whether what I said is true or not." Chu Qingyan tightened her fingers and looked at him coldly again. "Daunting, do you dare to swear that what you said is true? Do you mean the matter of the guardians of the killing group?" Higashio Motetsu seemed to ask casually, and then when Chu Qingyan glanced at him, he immediately raised 3 fingers. "I, Higashio Motetsu, swear to God that if what I said is true, let me become the ugliest person in the world." The ancients valued their promises and swore to God from the bottom of their hearts. For a person who cared so much about appearance, this oath was vicious. Although Chu Qingyan still had some doubts in her heart, she didn't have any other evidence at this time, so she gave up. Higashio Motetsu saw that she was no longer so tense and secretly laughed in his heart. This little girl was still a little inexperienced. There were indeed guardians of the killing group who betrayed the Moon Palace, but unfortunately, not long after they escaped, they were killed by their father. There was no evidence, so he wasn't afraid of her investigating. Today, he was just borrowing his identity. Chu Qingyan took back her sword and casually threw it away, indicating that she would no longer ask him. Higashio Motetsu was a person who was especially good at reading people's expressions. After the crisis was over, he immediately took advantage of it. "Little girl, I'm injured." Upon hearing that he was injured, Chu Qingyan immediately went forward to check on him. She saw that there was a cut on the back of his hand, and the corner of her mouth twitched. "You're too precious. It's just a red mark." After her body relaxed, Chu Qingyan felt a slight pain in her arm. She frowned and raised her hand, only to find that her arm had been stabbed at some point, and her sleeve was dyed red. Higashio Motetsu saw that she was in pain, and his expression changed. Ignoring her struggle, he lifted her arm to check. After checking, he found that there was no bone injury, only a flesh wound. However, the flesh was torn open, and it was a little serious. He coughed lightly and said, "Little girl, I've implicated you. If you feel guilty, you can write off all the things that I owe you." Chu Qingyan took advantage of the situation and said. Higashio Motetsu revealed a bright smile at her and said evilly, "No way. You have no sincerity at all." Chu Qingyan felt that the wound wasn't very deep, so she didn't care too much. She was just a little worried about how to explain to the big ice cube when she went back. She had only come out for a walk to buy something, and she ended up in this ghastly state. She had a headache. Chapter 445. After pulling out 2 strands of her hair, Chu Qingyan decided to hide it from him. If Big Ice Cube knew that she was injured, it would be the same as asking for trouble. When she came back to her senses, she saw that Higashio Motetsu had picked up the ribbon that had fallen on the ground and walked to her side. He lifted her arm and carefully bandaged it. This young master doesn't have the habit of carrying medicine for injuries. "I'll help you take care of it first. Later, I'll have your people apply medicine and bandage it again." Chu Qingyan watched as he carefully bandaged her wound. Her gaze became complicated. What kind of person was he? "Dongting, I'll believe you for now. Don't lie to me." She looked at his hand and said word by word seriously. Trust was the bridge between good friends. Once the bridge was broken, there would be no chance for them to contact each other. She was a person who could not tolerate being played around by others. Higashio Motetsu's fingers paused for a moment. He then wrapped the ribbon around her arm for the last time and replied, "And I won't. That's good. I hate being lied to the most." Chu Qingyan breathed a sigh of relief and put down the last trace of doubt in her heart about his identity. When Chu Qingyan's words fell, Higashio Motetsu's heart suddenly trembled. He frowned and didn't say anything else. After he finished bandaging her wound, He let go of her hand. He still had that devilish smile on his face. Little girl, will you be scolded if you go back like this? I'm just worrying about how to explain myself. Chu Qingyin looked at the ribbon wrapped around her arm and looked distressed. Just tell the truth. Higashio Motetsu replied casually. If there's no other way, then this is the only way. It's getting late. Let's go back. Jin Xin and the others must be waiting anxiously. Chu Qingyin touched the bundle on her shoulder and smiled gently. She had gained a lot today. She had to quickly tell Big Ice Cube. Chu Qingyin was already walking quickly in front. Higashio Motetsu looked at her figure that was gradually blending into the dusk, and a thick gloominess appeared in his eyes. However, when she turned around to urge him, it quickly disappeared from the corner of her eyes. Daunting. If those people blame your father's death on you, won't you be like a rat crossing the street, hated by everyone? Chu Qingyin tilted her head and asked him, what can we do? We can't stay in the house forever. Higashio Motetsu shrugged. Chu Qingyin shook her head and suggested against her conscience. I think you should cover yourself up when you go out in the future. Your appearance is too eye-catching. Higashio Motetsu smiled cheerfully and said, Little girl, you also admit that this young master's appearance is outstanding. No, it's just that your appearance is too unique. As long as your enemies see you once, they will never forget you. Chu Qingyin mercilessly teased him. Higashio Motetsu had nothing to say to this little girl's duplicity. After the fierce fight just now, the two of them were a little tired. However, their relaxed mood was even higher. Chu Qingyin was still excited about improving her swordsmanship, so she chatted with Higashio Motetsu without the usual restraint. In the midst of their battle of words, the two of them had already returned to the agreed place. Du Guqing, whose face was filled with anxiety, immediately rushed forward when she saw who it was. Little Qingyin, why did you come back so late? The sun is about to set. Do you know how worried I was about you? After saying that, her voice was a little hoarse. She knew about the Blue Manor, and also knew that some people who went to the Blue Manor couldn't come back. At that time, she thought that little Qingyin wouldn't be so stupid to come back so quickly. Who knew that after waiting for so long, her heart had already been hung up. Du Guqing reached out to hug her, but was suddenly pushed away by a pair of hands. She raised her head and heard Higashio Motetsu say, Miss Dugu, the little girl is a little injured. The implication was that she shouldn't touch her. Hearing that she was injured, Du Guqing couldn't be bothered to admire the handsome man. Only then did she see that her sleeve was torn. She hurriedly wanted to check, but Chu Qingyin pulled her hand with a smile. It's just a scratch. It's already been bandaged. Go back and apply some medicine. Let's go back quickly. At this time, Jin Xin stepped forward without a word and draped the cloak in his hands over his master's shoulders. This was given to him by Xining before he left. He didn't expect it to come in handy at this time. Chu Qingyin nodded at him. Du Guqing also knew that the time was late, so she didn't delay. After bidding farewell to Higashio Motetsu, with Chu Qingyin, she walked back with Jin Xin. You mischievous girl, you made me worried to death. Du Guqing raised her hand and wanted to give her a chestnut, but remembered Higashio Motetsu's words just now. She turned her hand and pinched her face. Chu Qingyin pretended to grimace in pain. Sister Dugu, please be merciful. I'm very weak now, and I think you're not worried about me. You're worried that if something happens to me, young master, he will ignore you, right? Oh, you mischievous girl, you really don't know how to appreciate kindness. Go away. Du Guqing turned her head and ignored her. Okay, I'm just kidding. Chu Qingyin laughed and comforted her. After saying it a few times, she didn't get any response. Chu Qingyin immediately lowered her voice. Good sister, please forgive me for saying things that aren't pleasant to hear. Du Guqing, who had been holding back her laughter for a long time, turned back and pinched her little face again. Little girl, you're right. This lady is only worried that Big Brother Ling Feng will vent his anger on me. How can your little brain be so smart? You should worry about yourself. How are you going to explain your injury when we go back later? Chu Qingyin withered in the wind. She really didn't play by the rules. Along the way, they were laughing and joking, but she didn't know what kind of chaos would happen when they returned. She could only hope that her injury wouldn't be discovered. Higashio Motetsu stood at the end of the alley, looking at the departing figures of the three people with a thoughtful expression. At this time, Xuanqi Zimo appeared behind him. Master. Earlier, he had already received news that his master was being attacked. When he rushed over, his master had indicated not to appear, so he could only follow behind. Higashio Motetsu looked at the petite figure turning the corner. Her words suddenly echoed in his ears. She said she believed him, but what she hated the most was being lied to. Little girl, if one day you find out that I lied to you, will you, Zimo? Higashio Motetsu frowned and said, This subordinate is here. Xuanqi Zimo immediately replied, Find out who those people are. Don't hold back. Get rid of them all. Don't leave any traces behind. This young master doesn't want them to appear in front of the little girl again. Higashio Motetsu said faintly. His voice was beautiful, but it contained a bloodthirsty, killing intent. He rarely appeared in front of the world as the young master of the Moon Palace sect. Very few people knew his identity. If these people didn't know that his father had been searching for the ginseng fruit all year round and spread the news that the ginseng fruit was being sold in the Blue Manor, he wouldn't have appeared. However, after dealing with these problems, no matter how much the little girl investigated in the future, she wouldn't be able to find any clues. Yes, Xuanqi Zimo felt that his master's voice was different from before, but he didn't dare to ask. Chapter 446. As soon as they stepped into the E estate, Chu Qingyin reminded them again not to divulge today's matter, then walked towards the rear courtyard. Soon, she reached the rear courtyard's entrance and saw a figure from afar. Chu Qingyin subconsciously hid behind Du Guqing. Chu Qingyin's action stunned Du Guqing. When she saw the person in front of her clearly, she couldn't help patting Chu Qingyin's head in amusement and teased. When did you become afraid of Yilingfeng? Hearing that it was Yilingfeng, Chu Qingyin immediately straightened her back and walked out from behind Du Guqing, pretending that nothing had happened. She coughed softly, then said, Let's continue walking. Du Guqing couldn't help laughing at her appearance and followed her, unable to resist, saying, Little Qingyin, you seem to be very afraid of your fiancé. He's not good-looking, doesn't speak much, and doesn't know how to coax girls. What do you see in him? Chu Qingyin's face darkened when she heard this. She wanted to refute, but thought that there was no need. She saw Yilingfeng's voice from the corner of her eye and curved her lips. Elder sister Dugu, shouldn't young master E be in his own courtyard usually at this time? Why would he appear at our courtyard's entrance? Could it be that he's waiting for someone? But only you and I are out today, but I can guarantee that he's not waiting for me. Du Guqing had wanted to tease little Qingyin, but she didn't expect to be teased back at her. Her expression instantly became a little interesting, and she couldn't help but roll her eyes at Chu Qingyin. You're so sharp-tongued at such a young age. I wonder who taught you. Chu Qingyin agreed with a grin. Thank you for admitting it. I'm just a self-taught genius. Elder sister Dugu, do you know that in the Yangtze River, the new generation surpasses the old, and the old generation dies on the beach? With that, she made a face at her, then slipped away. The sound of Du Guqing stomping her feet came from behind, and Chu Qingyin laughed. Their movements had attracted Yilingfeng's attention. Chu Qingyin walked up and saw Yilingfeng's eyes fall on Du Guqing behind her. Her heart was beating fast. Could it be that she was right? Yilingfeng was waiting for Du Guqing? Chu Qingyin doesn't care if it's true or not. When she passes by Yilingfeng, she says mischievously, Young Master E, are you waiting for our beauty Dugu? Look, they're here. Don't let them down. As soon as her voice fell, she didn't look at Yilingfeng's expression and cheerfully stepped in her own courtyard. Haha, what she loved the most was to cause trouble, but she had the moral integrity to cause trouble. Serious face. Chu Qingyin was beaming with joy as she entered the courtyard. When she saw the person standing under the plum tree, the smile on her face instantly froze. What was the meaning of extreme joy begetting sorrow. Look, this was it. It was an abyss of suffering in the courtyard. Outside the courtyard, there was silence. Du Guqing saw Yi Lingfeng standing there quietly. She had also heard Chu Qingyin shout just now. Her cheeks couldn't help but heat up. Her eyes flashed, but she slowly walked over. Yi Lingfeng was already regretting it. He shouldn't have unknowingly walked here when the servants were talking about her not coming back for a long time. It was like a husband waiting for his wife to come home. He originally wanted to say hello and turn to leave, but when he saw her red cheeks and her big grape-like eyes, he couldn't move his feet. He could only watch as she approached step by step. Big brother Lingfeng, what are you doing here? She walked in front of him, but he didn't say anything. Du Guqing could only take the initiative to speak. This question was quite normal. Yi Lingfeng cleared his throat and was about to answer, but she unexpectedly popped out another sentence. Are you waiting for me? Cough, cough. Yi Lingfeng instantly choked. He already knew this fellow's character of not giving up until she said something shocking, but he still hadn't learned his lesson. Du Guqing's eyes widened. She wanted to go up and pat his back, but Yi Lingfeng avoided her. I'm fine. Hearing this, she said very innocently and cutely, Big brother Lingfeng, are you very excited to see me? Yi Lingfeng indicated that he didn't want to talk to her anymore. He must be crazy to worry about her. Just that mouth of hers was enough to scare away those bad people. Yi Lingfeng didn't say anything to her as he turned to leave. Out of sight, out of mind. AI, Big brother Lingfeng, why are you leaving? You still haven't told me. Are you waiting for me? How could Du Guqing let go of this great opportunity as she immediately followed him? Don't pull me. Tell me, did you miss me? Nonsense. You're lying. I saw you blink twice. The servants who were cleaning at the side saw this scene and were very shocked. Why did their distinguished and elegant young master always run away in front of this girl? It really didn't match his gentleman's style. Incomprehensible. The conversation outside faintly traveled into the courtyard. Chu Qingyin wanted to cry, but had no tears. Ally, how could you run away by yourself? Didn't you say that you would cover for me? How could you drop the ball at such a crucial moment? If Du Guqing knew what she was thinking, she would definitely reply, Isn't there still Jean Xin? Chu Qingyin face-bombed. Jean Xin was like a block of wood. Wouldn't it be asking for his life if he made up a lie? She was afraid that he would be more of a hindrance. Forget it. The facts proved that she could only fight on her own now. Under the plum blossom tree, a big Buddha was eyeing her covetously. Big Ice Cube. She didn't dare to take another step forward and called out to him from afar. Although her heart was beating like a drum and she was panicking, but her voice still sounded as clear and loud as usual. If one didn't listen carefully, they wouldn't be able to feel the trembling in her voice. Her eyes were curved like the crescent moon, unable to pick out any mistakes. Chu Qingyin gave herself extra points in her heart with satisfaction. It was a waste of her good acting skills if she didn't go into acting in the past. Unfortunately, the big Buddha didn't care about this at all. Aren't you tired of standing so far away? Xiao felt a little uncomfortable when he saw that she was so far away from him. I have something to look for, Sister Yanluo. Chu Qingyin didn't dare to approach him and spoke quickly. She didn't wait for him to speak and was about to slip away. Come back. Xiao frowned and ordered her. He felt that something was wrong with her today. She was doomed. What she didn't want was coming. Chu Qingyin sighed. It was better to be open and honest than to be hesitant. Unfortunately, she understood it too late. She walked slowly towards him, trying to figure out how to get out of this situation. You didn't eat today? Seeing her crawl slowly like a snail, Xiao's voice suddenly turned cold. Chu Qingyin wanted to cry, but had no tears. How would she dare to dawdle? Therefore, she looked happy on the surface, but in fact, she was crying on the inside. She skipped toward Xiao. Are you hiding something from me? Xiao's eyes scanned her face, and he hit the nail on the head. Chu Qingyin immediately shook her head. Xiao saw that she was standing there obediently and didn't make things difficult for her. He was about to let her go and find Chang Yanluo. However, He vaguely smelled the scent of blood. His expression changed slightly. Are you injured? Chu Qingyan wanted to cry, but had no tears. Big Ice Cube, what kind of nose do you have? It's even more sensitive than a wolf. Big Ice Cube, don't be angry. Chu Qingyan blurted out. Chapter 447. Xiao Su didn't expect her to admit her mistake so quickly. However, that wasn't what he wanted to hear. Where are you hurt? His voice was very deep, so deep that she couldn't detect any emotions. Chu Qingyan knew that she had been exposed, so she could only confess. Otherwise, she would be severely punished. My hand. However, she didn't know why, but when she raised her injured arm in front of him, she suddenly felt a sense of grievance in her heart. This feeling of grievance was very similar to that of someone who had been bullied outside and kept quiet. Only after returning home did she dare to bawl in front of the person closest to her. When she was injured, she didn't feel any pain at all. Even when Higashio Motetsu bandaged her wound, she didn't feel anything. However, the moment she raised her hand, she felt as if her wound was being burned by fire. It was a piercing pain. When Xiao Su saw the bloodstains on the sleeve under the cloak, his face instantly turned as cold as ice. When he raised his head and was about to reprimand her, he saw her looking at him with watery eyes, as if she had been greatly wronged. The words of reprimand he wanted to say were stuck in his throat, but he couldn't open his mouth. He took her uninjured hand and said coldly to the empty courtyard, "Ask Ethereal and Miss Chung to come to the room." Yes. Chu Qingyan looked at his back and followed him back to the room. The Big Ice Cube actually didn't scold her. Was he going to settle the score with her after treating her wound? Chu Qingyan shuddered at the thought of it. However, the Big Ice Cube's hand was so warm, unlike when she had just returned from outside. It was so cold. Once the two of them returned to the room, Xiao Su asked her to sit down obediently and didn't say a word. Chu Qingyan felt that the atmosphere was a little heavy, but due to his coercion, she didn't dare to speak rashly. Not long after, Ethereal and Chung Yinluo arrived. "Little girl, I heard that you're injured." Chung Yinluo hurried forward and saw the satin bandage on Xiao Su's arm. She looked up and saw that Xiao Su's complexion was fine, and the worry in her eyes disappeared. She crossed her arms and glanced at Xiao Su. "I thought you were seriously injured, so you called me over in a hurry. Turns out it's just a minor injury." Kong Ling first bowed to his master. When he turned around and heard his shimmy say this, he couldn't help but turn his gaze to the young Wang Fei's arm. He let out a sigh of relief in his heart. His master had him and Shimmy come at the same time to see the patient. He also thought something big had happened. "Cut the crap. Deal with it first." Xiao Su ignored him and directly ordered. "Chung," Yinluo muttered, "you're really treating me like a servant girl." Ethereal chuckled at her words. It seemed that his master really doted on the young consort to the bone. He even made such a big fuss over such a small injury. He was used to seeing serious injuries and illnesses on the battlefield. Indeed, this small injury was nothing to him. However, it also depended on who was worried. Seeing the young consort sitting obediently on the chair like a little wife, he couldn't help but want to laugh. It seemed that only his master could control the young consort. Chung Yinluo went forward and untied the satin band. She casually asked, "Who bandaged your wound?" "His technique is quite skillful." Chu Qingyan answered truthfully, "A friend." Xiao Su raised his brows slightly at her answer. Could it be the man who had appeared at Tianxiang brothel before? At this moment, Chu Qingyan thought of the thing on her back. Coincidentally, Yinluo was also there. She became agitated. "Big Ice Cube, I have something important to tell you." Xiao Su wasn't moved by her words. "We'll talk later." Big Ice Cube's aura was too strong. She didn't dare to refute him and could only endure it. Chung Yinluo was amused by the way the two of them interacted. It was like a child who had done something wrong and a stern elder. She lowered her head to hide her smile and carefully examined the wound on her hand. Although the wound looks serious, it's fortunate that it's not too deep. Otherwise, it wouldn't be as simple as a few days of rest. Chu Qingyin smiled sheepishly at Cheng Yinluo's scolding. Medicine. After Cheng Yinluo cleaned the wound, she reached out to Ethereal without looking up. Ethereal passed her the medicine in her hand. Cheng Yinluo took it and applied the medicine on Chu Qingyin. Gauze. Cheng Yinluo reached out again. Ethereal passed it to her again. Chu Qingyin looked at the scene and asked suspiciously, "Have you two made up?" "No, no." The two of them spoke in unison, but after glancing at each other, they quickly averted their gazes. Even the way they spoke was exactly the same. Chu Qingyin snickered inwardly. Something must have happened between the two of them again. When they heard that the young princess consort was injured, Huoling and Turin returned from outside the residence and went straight to the courtyard. When they saw that Ethereal and the others were also there, they retreated to the side. After Cheng Yinluo finished bandaging the wound, she said, "Don't let it come into contact with water for the next 2 days. Change the dressing once a day, understand?" "Okay." Chu Qingyin suspected that she was using her position to avenge a personal grudge. She actually patted her hand. It was so painful. After agreeing, Chu Qingyin immediately said to the three of them, "I had 2 great gains today. They're related to the ice crystal flower and the love grass." Cheng Yinluo and Ethereal immediately stopped what they were doing and looked at her in surprise. Ethereal blurted out, "Young princess consort, what did you say?" Turin and Huoling glanced at each other, equally surprised. And Xiao Su, who was watching her apply the medicine, was also slightly surprised. Chu Qingyin looked at him and said seriously, "The ice crystal flower is indeed in the Jiang Empire's imperial palace, and the love grass's seed was given to a respectable doctor in Shang Empire by the 100 Herb Mountains Lord. However, that doctor has already passed away, so I'm not too sure about the current whereabouts of the love grass." "Young princess consort, is what you said true?" Ethereal couldn't help but step forward to ask, her face full of disbelief. "It's true." Chu Qingyin nodded solemnly. "Where did you obtain these 2 pieces of information?" Xiao Su didn't ask about the reliability of the information, but directly asked about the source. He was more concerned about whether her injury was caused by prying for information. Chu Qingyin already knew that she couldn't hide the fact that she went to the Blue Manor from everyone, so she told everyone everything she did in the Blue Manor in detail. She only skipped over the matter of those people from the pugilistic world besieging them. The all-knowing man in pugilistic world? He's very famous in the pugilistic world, so what he said shouldn't be false. Huoling was very excited. Cheng Yinluo suddenly realized, "No wonder you made me fiddle with that lipstick a few days ago. So it was for this transaction. Little girl, you really hit it well." Chu Qingyin didn't dare to accept Cheng Yinluo's words, nor did she dare to look at the big ice cube's current expression. She had deceived everyone this time, but unfortunately, she had no choice but to self-destruct in the end. Turin also spoke up at this time. "Master, this subordinate feels that the 2 pieces of information young princess consort obtained are very useful. We've narrowed down the scope in an instant, so we can concentrate on these 2 areas. I'll leave this matter to you. Tonight, we'll discuss the specifics of the operation in the study." Xiao Su nodded. Young princess consort had helped them greatly this time. Although their master was very unhappy with young princess consort's unauthorized actions, they could only say, "Young princess consort, you're on your own." Turin and Huoling immediately accepted the order in high spirits. Chapter 448. Little girl, I didn't expect you to be so smart. Cheng Yinluo patted her head and praised her generously. "Ahem, Sister Yinluo, I'm not a puppy. Don't touch me like that." Chu Qingyin protested. Cheng Yinluo retracted her hand and shook her head. "Why? Your big ice cube can touch your head like a puppy, but I can't? Don't treat me differently, okay? I help you treat your wound just now." Chu Qingyin rolled her eyes. "That's different." Cheng Yinluo spread her hands, indicating that she couldn't understand. At this moment, Chu Qingyin recalled something. However, she pursed her lips because Big Ice Cube was present. She tugged at Cheng Yinluo's sleeve and whispered, "Sister Yinluo, I need your help with something. Do you have time after dinner? Hearing her words, Chung Yinluo glanced at Xiao Su and understood that the little girl wanted to avoid him. She nodded and said, I'm always free. You can come to my room later. Chung Yinluo then said to Xiao Su, there are a few famous doctors in Shang Kingdom. I remember that my father once traveled there. I'll go back and check the notes he left behind to see if there are any useful clues. I'll have to trouble you, Miss Chung. Xiao Su nodded. Chung Yinluo left. Ethereal noticed that the atmosphere between his master and the little princess consort was a little strange, so he excused himself with the excuse of checking some information. The room, which had been lively just a moment ago, was now left with only the two of them sitting opposite each other in silence. Chu Qingyin touched the gauze on her hand and cautiously glanced at the person who was drinking tea alone. She felt uneasy. Big Ice Cube's anger seemed to have subsided. She hesitated for a moment before she stood up and walked to him. She tugged at his sleeve and said softly, Big Ice Cube, I was wrong. Don't be angry. Sister Yinluo said that you're not in the right condition to worry and get angry. You said that you were wrong. Do you know where you went wrong? Xiao Su raised his eyes and looked at her with eyes as calm as water. His tone didn't soften at all because of her weakness. He was done for. Judging from his tone, he was really going to settle the score. Chu Qingyin bit her lips and lowered her head to admit her mistake. She said sincerely, I was wrong for not protecting myself well and for being too confident. What else? Xiao Su continued. There's more? Chu Qingyin was at a loss. When she met his somewhat cold gaze, she immediately nodded like a chick pecking at rice. Yes, and I shouldn't have not brought Jean Xin with me, she said as she looked at his expression, but did not see him ease up at all. And? What else? She was about to cry. Also, I shouldn't have come home so late. Chu Qingyin's voice became softer and softer as she answered. Seeing that she didn't answer his question, Xiao Su's tone suddenly sank. He pulled his sleeve away from her hand. It seems that you still haven't realized where you went wrong. Then take your time to think about it. With that said, Xiao Su stood up. He ignored her pitiful look and strode out of the door. If he didn't teach her a lesson this time, she might forget the pain after the scar healed again. Chu Qingyin looked at her empty hands and turned her head. His figure had already disappeared from the side of the door. She leaned against the chair and started to wonder. What else did she do wrong to make the big ice cube so angry? She had said everything that she could think of. This was the first time that the big ice cube had been so angry at her. She felt very wronged, but she couldn't ask anything now that he was gone. She could only think about it herself, but she really couldn't figure it out. The big ice cube didn't even remind her. At this moment, Xining knew that her master had returned and was injured. She immediately came back from the kitchen. Master, are you all right? Xining asked worriedly. Chu Qingyin pointed at her injured hand and said unhappily, I'm fine. It's just a superficial wound. I won't die. Pei, don't talk about dying. It's inauspicious. Xining immediately spat a few times on the ground. Her gloomy mood was immediately alleviated by Xining's cute actions. Xining, I find that you're becoming more and more like a happy person. Xining was very calm towards her master's praise because she had heard her master say this many times before. Master, you should eat first. You must be hungry after going out for a day. Chu Qingyin, who hadn't felt hungry yet, when she heard the word eat, her stomach let out two rumbling sounds. She rubbed her stomach. Today's battle of wits and courage had exhausted her energy and stamina. She nodded. Okay. After all the dishes were served, Chu Qingyin was surprised to find out. Why did you only prepare my portion? Where's His Highness? Xining, who was scooping rice, hesitated and said, Master, Lord asked someone to bring the food to the study. I think he doesn't want to eat with you. Chu Qingyin, who had just picked up her chopsticks, suddenly lost her appetite. The big ice cube must still be angry. What should she do? The meal tasted like wax. Chu Qingyin didn't care about anything else. She took the box and walked towards Cheng Yinluo's room. When she knocked on Cheng Yinluo's door, the latter had just finished bathing. When she saw her, she stepped aside to let her in. What's the matter? Why did you come looking for me behind His Highness's back? Cheng Yinluo adjusted her clothes and looked at her curiously. Chu Qingyin didn't waste any time. She walked to the table and put down the box. I used lipstick to exchange for something at the Blue Manor. Help me appraise it. As she spoke, she opened the box. The box wasn't deep. Half of a white jade ball was exposed. Cheng Yinluo's attention was immediately drawn to it. She reached out and took out the ball that was slightly bigger than a grape. A green light flashed in her eyes. Heartless bead. It's good stuff. Yes, yes. Chu Qingyan nodded. It seemed that Cheng Yinluo knew what it was. Is this useful for His Highness? Are you referring to the snake's kiss poison? Cheng Yinluo retracted her gaze from the heartless bead and looked at Chu Qingyan. She shook her head regretfully. Although the heartless bead is said to be able to ward off and detoxify hundreds of poisons, it's only effective against common poisons. The snake's kiss poison is the most venomous of all poisons. The heartless bead can't detoxify it. Chu Qingyan's eyes were disappointed. I see. Actually, when she made the exchange, she didn't think about the snake's kiss poison. She was just hoping for a fluke. Otherwise, she would have asked Big Ice Cube about it when he was around. She just didn't want to have any extra hope and disappoint Big Ice Cube later. That was why she chose to ask him secretly. After all, she didn't have much hope. Cheng Yinluo's tone changed when she heard her disappointed tone. She smiled and said, although it can't detoxify the snake's kiss poison, it doesn't mean that it has no other effects. After all, this is a top-notch detoxification bead that everyone in the world covets. You can't underestimate it. Oh, then what other effects can it have on the snake's kiss poison? Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up with hope. Chapter 449. Cheng Yinluo sat down and leaned against the back of the chair with a relaxed expression. She looked at the anxious Chu Qingyan with a smile on her face. She suddenly felt that this little girl was like a little kitten lying on her lap, waiting to be fed. She couldn't help but want to tease her. Little girl, have you heard that there's no such thing as a free lunch in this world? When Chu Qingyan heard her tone, she knew that she wanted to negotiate with her. She felt very tired. Why did each and every one of them want to help her with the purpose of negotiating? How could you be friends with them like this? Couldn't they be simple and pure? However, the other party had something she wanted, so she could only admit defeat. Sister Yinluo, just tell me what you want. If it's within my capabilities, I'll definitely satisfy you. Chu Qingyan replied solemnly. Cheng Yinluo pretended to be obedient. Little girl, I'm not the kind of person who would take advantage of an opportunity to blackmail others. However, since you've asked so sincerely, I'll feel bad if I don't accept it. I won't stand on ceremony then. I think your Xiao lipstick is pretty good. Can you make me a set too? Although she had participated in the production of Xiao lipstick, she had only provided the flowers. Chu Qingyan was the one who actually made it. She had the recipe, but didn't know where to start. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she nodded graciously. Although the production process of Xiao lipstick was troublesome, it wasn't difficult for her. She could make 1 or 2 lipsticks, so she agreed readily. Straightforward. I like your character. You're not wishy-washy or bashful. After praising her highly, Cheng Yinluo cut to the chase. Although the snakebite's poison is too strong and can't be detoxified by the heartless bead has the ability to condense the poison and slow down the spread of the poison. Although it can't detoxify the snakebite's poison, it can at least slow down the spread of the poison. Cheng Yinluo saw that she was puzzled, so she continued to explain. The redstone fruit can slow down the onset of the snakebite's poison and save a person's life for 81 days. The heartless bead has the same effect, but it's not as effective as the redstone fruit. How long can the heartless bead delay? Chu Qingyan felt that this effect was very powerful and asked anxiously. This? Cheng Yinluo frowned and said uncertainly, I don't know. After all, no one has tested it before. Chu Qingyan felt that these 10 days were too short, but it was better than nothing. Cheng Yinluo then added, but now that you've obtained the Heartless Pearl, the effects might be better if you use it in advance. At least your Highness will be able to use his internal martial arts without triggering the poison. Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up. If that's the case, that would be great. Then the big ice cube won't be restricted. She couldn't use martial arts, so she was trapped by Junzi Mei and Junzi Sheng in Junlan. Even if Big Ice Cube didn't say anything, she could still feel the humiliation. If a person lost the skills that they relied on to survive, they would feel despair and anxiety. Martial arts wasn't something that Big Ice Cube relied on to survive, but it was something that he couldn't do without. It was like he was used to writing with his right hand, but one day he couldn't hold the pen with his right hand anymore. It was a feeling that he couldn't describe to others. Although Big Ice Cube didn't show it, Cheng Yinluo knew how frustrated he was. The appearance of the Heartless Jade just so happened to solve this dilemma. Cheng Yinluo couldn't help shaking her head when she saw how overjoyed Chu Qingyan was. "Little girl, you've been poisoned by your Big Ice Cube. It's too deep." Chu Qingyan looked her up and down and retorted bluntly, "You've been poisoned by your Morong Ju too. We're in the same boat." "Wow, is this how you treat your benefactor? Be careful, or I won't help you next time. You won't be able to ask for help." Cheng Yinluo snorted. Chu Qingyan raised her hands in surrender. She was afraid that she would have to trouble Cheng Yinluo with a lot of things in the future. She'd better straighten out this Empress Dowager's feathers first. "But to be honest, I feel that the two of you have been acting strange recently. Did you do something behind my back?" Chu Qingyan put away the box and asked with concern, "What do you mean by behind our backs? Let's do it openly, okay?" As soon as she said that, Cheng Yinluo realized that she had said too much. She immediately stopped talking and looked away, tried to change the subject. "It's getting colder and colder. Little girl, you should wear more clothes. Don't catch a cold." Her stiff tone and lame topic were enough to prove that she was guilty. Chu Qingyan moved her head closer to Cheng Yinluo, looked into her eyes, and asked seriously, "Don't change the subject. Tell me now. I'll be lenient if you confess." Cheng Yinluo moved her face away and cleared her throat. "It's not what you think. Don't get involved." Chu Qingyan looked at her suspiciously. "You're really not going to tell me? You better take care of your Big Ice Cube. We're fine." Cheng Yinluo patted her head and smiled naturally. "All right, I won't ask." Chu Qingyan spread her hands. "But I think that lovers who can kill each other can still love each other. I really hope that you two can get back together." Cheng Yinluo smiled and said, "Forget it. After this trip to Jiang Kingdom is over, we'll go our separate ways. He has his responsibilities, and I have my medical center. In the future, we won't be able to work together." Chu Qingyan could hear the sadness in her voice, and she thought to herself, "Isn't this like the torture before parting?" It was indeed the world of love. No one could understand it. Chu Qingyan sighed inwardly and stopped asking questions. It was rare to see this side of Cheng Yinluo. "Little girl, if your Big Ice Cube gets rid of the poison, what are your plans?" Cheng Yinluo suddenly asked. "There's no if. He'll definitely get rid of the poison." Chu Qingyan said solemnly, "I don't know what plans I have. I don't have any big ambitions at the moment. I'll just stay by Big Ice Cube's side. If he goes back to Sichuan to be the Lord, I'll accompany him to the capital. If he leaves everything behind, I'll wander the world. It's all good. It seems that your feelings for your Big Ice Cube are quite deep. I'm so envious." Cheng Yinluo poured a cup of tea for Cheng Yinluo and another for herself. She was a little absent-minded as the warm tea pressed against her fingers. She yearned to follow Big Ice Cube at all costs. Unfortunately, the person was not right and the time was not right. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. "I'm just a rice worm. I won't starve to death if I stay by Big Ice Cube's side. Such ambition." Cheng Yinluo shook her head. "It's too small. It's too embarrassing. No, I feel that I'm cute." Cheng Yinluo giggled. Chu Qingyan also laughed. Actually, it wasn't easy for her to stay by Big Ice Cube's side like a rice worm. There were too many demons and monsters. She still had to shoulder the heavy responsibility of killing them. If I'm far away from the imperial court, I might be able to sell lipstick and do some business. I might even be able to become a wealthy merchant. It's not impossible. Chu Qingyan thought happily. "Look at your personality. Can you sit still?" Cheng Yinluo poured cold water on her. Chu Qingyan shook her finger. No. I still have to have dreams. What if they come true? Chung Yinluo shrugged. At this moment, someone knocked on the door. Is Miss Qingyan? It was Huoling's voice. Chapter 450. Here, Chung Yinluo answered and stood up to open the door. She saw Huoling standing outside the door, saying to her, Miss Chung, regarding those 2 herbs, we want to discuss them in detail in the study. Do you have time to join us? Chung Yinluo answered without hesitation. No problem. I'll be there in a moment. Many thanks. Huoling nodded and was about to leave when a small head suddenly popped out from behind Chung Yinluo. Huoling, who did His Highness invite? Am I included? Chu Qingyan asked eagerly. When Huoling saw that it was his little princess consort, he smiled at her and said, Master didn't mention you, so he probably wants you to recuperate well. Huoling will take his leave first. After Huoling left, Chung Yinluo closed the door and turned around, only to see Chu Qingyan with a bitter expression. She chuckled. What's wrong? Did you 2 have a fight? Chu Qingyan shook her head and nodded. In the end, she could only say in distress, It can't be considered a fight. It's just a one-sided Cold War. Isn't your family's big ice cube always cold? Chung Yinluo expressed that she couldn't understand. Chu Qingyan scratched her head, not knowing how to explain. Forget it. Let's not talk about this. I'll go to the study with you. Chung Yinluo nodded indifferently. Perhaps these 2 were just quarreling and their relationship would be as good as before. You're going to wear this? Chung Yinluo pointed at her arm. Chu Qingyan followed her gaze and saw that not only were her sleeves torn, even her clothes were stained with blood and dirt. She really cut a sorry figure. She was in a hurry to find Yinluo after eating and forgot to change her clothes. If she went back to change now, it would definitely waste a lot of time. Thus, Chu Qingyan smashed the pot to pieces and said, It's fine. We're all on the same side anyway. There's no need to worry about losing face. Hearing her say this, Chung Yinluo didn't say anything else and followed her out the door. When the 2 of them arrived at the study, Ling Feng, Fire Spirit, Ethereal with Spirit, and Turin were already there. As soon as he saw Chu Qingyan, Xiao Su, who was sitting at the head of the table, gave her a disapproving look, but since there were so many people present, he didn't scold her to go back to her room. Chu Qingyan had already felt his cold gaze as soon as she entered the room, but she didn't dare to meet his eyes. She was the one who found this information, so she had the right to participate, okay? However, she only dared to argue in her heart. No matter how bold she was, she wouldn't dare to say it in front of him. They all knew that the little princess had gone out on her own and was even injured. Therefore, their master's expression was unusually bad tonight. Therefore, the subordinates could only look down and pretend that they did not see the young princess consort. However, just because the fierce cavalry did not speak, it did not mean that the others would not speak. Only to hear, AI, Miss Chu, I heard that you went deep into the tiger's den and got injured to help Brother Xiao obtain those 2 important pieces of information. You're really too brave. Sure enough, those who follow Brother Xiao are not ordinary people. Ling Feng fanned himself with a paper fan and sipped his tea, speaking in a strange tone. Every word that came out of his mouth stepped on Xiao Su's sore spot. As soon as his words fell, not only did Xiao Su's expression change, Chu Qingyan's face also darkened. Was this person praising her or trying to sow discord? He was simply touching the pot that didn't boil. Could it be that he was bearing a grudge because of what she said in the afternoon? If that was the case, then he was as petty as by Xiao Sheng. Young Master I didn't get injured because of the information. There's another reason. Can you not confuse people, okay? Chu Qingyan said in a bad mood. Oh, then what's the reason? Ling Feng wanted to get to the bottom of it. He completely ignored Chu Qingyan's knife-like gaze. Because of her words, he had been pestered by Dugu Qing for several hours. And because of that sentence, he had been feeling uneasy the entire night. Usually, Chu Qingyan was protected like a treasure by Xiao Su. Now that he had finally caught her tail, how could he let her off easily? I'm not telling you. Chu Qingyan secretly glanced at the ice cube's cold face and turned back to glare at Lingfeng in fright. Can't this person have some eyesight? Can't he see that she doesn't want to say? It was rare for her to be so deflated. Lingfeng wanted to open his mouth to tease her, but he was shocked by the cold words floating from above. Don't quarrel, Lingfeng. You're not young anymore. Why are you making things difficult for a child? Lingfeng couldn't help but twitch his mouth. To be so protective of her to this extent, he had to give it to him. Prioritizing love over friendship? Hearing the Ice Cube's words, Chu Qingyan was secretly delighted. The Ice Cube still cared about her. But unfortunately, the cold words from above also came crashing down. The matter of you being injured, I'll settle it with you later. Chu Qingyan was stunned. Yes. Seeing their master and the princess consort interact, Hualing and the others all held back their laughter. This interaction was too funny. Lingfeng looked at Chu Qingyan's lowered head and his heart calmed down. This brother of his was quite fair. But Lingfeng forgot one thing. If it wasn't for Xiao Su speaking up, Chu Qingyan would have been forced to say the reason. How could Xiao Su not see that Chu Qingyan didn't want to talk about this topic? He only spoke up because he didn't want to make things difficult for her, so Xiao Su was still protective of her. It was a pity that Lingfeng did not think of this and was still feeling smug. Back to the topic, let's talk about tonight's topic first. Xiao Su's voice returned to normal as he said coldly, Hualing, Turin, tell us the information you've gathered. Hualing spoke first. This afternoon, we brought people to investigate the surroundings of the Jiang Kingdom's imperial palace. We found that their guards were the same as a few days ago. The number of guards only increased. Our people are not familiar with the terrain of the Jiang Kingdom's imperial palace. If we want to sneak into the imperial palace at night and search for the ice crystal flower, we may have to consider it at length. Turin continued. This subordinate has already sent a messenger pigeon to Water Spirit, asking her to focus on the Shang Kingdom. If there's the whereabouts of the love grass, she should immediately inform us. Xiao Su nodded. He turned to ask Lingfeng, can we get the map of the Jiang Kingdom's imperial palace? At this time, Lingfeng had already put away his frivolous appearance and was still waving his fan. He said with a serious expression, I'm afraid we'll have to wait for another 2 days. Recently, the Imperial Household Department has not purchased any cloth. Moreover, the people in the Imperial Palace only enter and do not leave. The people I sent out also did not receive any news. When the security in the Imperial Palace is relaxed, I'll contact the people inside. Xiao Su nodded. If we can't get the topographic map within 3 days, I'm afraid Turin will have to bring people to make a trip there personally. At this time, Cheng Yinluo spoke. I went back and checked the information about that doctor from the Shang Kingdom today. There are only 3 people who meet the 3 conditions of being a person of virtue and prestige, being acquainted with the 100-Herb Mountain Lord, and having already passed away. Which 3 people? Chu Qingyan asked with widened eyes. She originally thought that the love grass would have to fish in the sea of the Shang Kingdom. She did not expect that they could narrow down the search area in 1 day. She could not be more lucky. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.